There is no X Debrief without you. So feel free to talk to us. Comment on this YouTube video or post in our Discord and let us know what you want.
By the way, the one thing that everyone is praising for XDefiant is they came out and straight up said, we hate engagement optimized matchmaking. It makes the game boring. I'm curious if they bring it up again, because that's really the thing that everyone's been talking about.
See in the show. We want to make sure that you're both seen and heard. So each X Debrief will end with a community segment where we'll be answering those questions and showing off amazing moments. To be a part of the show, just use the hashtag XDebrief to submit your questions and gameplay clips. Until next time.
Now, this being the first episode of X Debrief, we thought it only fitting to start things off with executive producer Mark Rubin.
So he's like the big guy that's been talking all about it. I believe he worked on Call of Duty.
Grow and evolve with players. Let's get into the
we're Zoom calls because we're back in 2020. I see.
Obviously, you have a ton of experience with first-person shooters, and I want to know, for you, what makes a great arcade shooter?
It's going to always be the controls. If you don't get the controls right, if you don't get the feel, the fluidity,
that's what Call of Duty always does, right?
Just the controls themselves. That also has to do with things like the map design and how you flow through the map. If it doesn't feel so natural that you almost don't notice it, you're really not quite there yet. And I think that's something that we've had as a major focus for our game since the very beginning. And it's why we brought in a lot of experts, and a lot of pro players to make sure we get those controls just right.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of what makes a good first-person shooter, I know you've made some very specific decisions with XDefiant, one of them being no skill-based matchmaking.
Oh, now, they did bring it up.
Folks who might not be familiar, what exactly is skill-based matchmaking, and why did you decide that it wasn't right for XDefiant?
Okay, so skill-based matchmaking, also known as oftenly as SBMMM, basically
too many M's there, but yeah.
The game decides that you have a certain skill level after it kind of watches you play for a few matches, and then matches you up with people who are equivalent on your skill level. Now, in the olden days, it was pretty light and didn't really intrude too much into the game.
So I believe, I could be wrong, but I believe he worked on Call of Duty. Not sure what games, but he is talking about the early games when really skill-based matchmaking, most of it was based off of your in-game level.
It has become something that is more what they call actually engagement-based matchmaking now, where it sort of is like an AI that's monitoring your behavior and going, okay, this person's getting beaten too many times and we think they might quit, so we're going to make the game easier for them, and then you'll get a game where you win, and then it'll bring you back to the playing against the same people you were playing before. And the thing with all that, besides the whole sort of morality of it, is that I think it creates a stale experience.
It does.
Right? Like you
completely
keep playing
agree
against the same exact people, not the same exact people specifically, but the same exact type of player. You lose out on all the fun variety that I think a lot of the old school shooters had. Like you jump into a match and you can see a guy in there who's just wrecking, right? And he is just absolutely destroying, and you're kind of having fun with it because he's just so good, or she. And then you get into another game where you're the person who's wrecking, right? Like, and that experience, that variety is really what I think is.
He's 100% right.
Some of the modern,
and like at least at that point you can actually feel yourself becoming a better player. It's not just like, oh well, I got better, so everyone else did too.
Arcade shooters, and I think it's something that we really feel is important to bring back to first-person shooters.
Your philosophy with XDefiant through this whole pre-launch phase seems to be, let's get it in the hands of players, let's listen to players. And obviously there was a closed beta, you've also had open sessions, you've had the PTS session as well. What sort of feedback are you getting from players, and how has the game kind of evolved from that closed beta to where it is now at launch?
It's amazing how much influence players have had on this game. I mean, you look at the start at our very, very first closed beta where we...
So just playing devil's advocate here, the game didn't feel much different to me from the beta to the PTS at all. Honestly, I didn't notice much of a difference.
We're a Tom Clancy punk rock game, and the feedback we got was nobody wanted that and nobody liked it. And we were like, okay, we said, let's redo it. Let's take the time to redesign. And it's not just big things like that. It's been little things like map voting was something that we didn't have on our roadmap until much later after launch as a possible add if we felt like it was important. And everything we've done, whether it's through all the tests and all the designs.
Small thing. It's a small thing, but it's a big thing, right?
We actually put in early and got it into some of our playtests because players requested it. That's the behavior that we have on this game, and that's the philosophy that has led to where we are now and will continue to drive us for the future.
Honestly, it seems like a lot of the things that they're saying are things that people wanted in Call of Duty and now they are doing.
Speaking of that gathering feedback and the input players have had, what is your philosophy on gathering player feedback? Because obviously there are the vocal folks out there who are gonna let their opinions be known, but you're also gathering a lot of data, I imagine, behind the scenes. So how do you balance those two?
I want that lobby
versus what you're seeing.
The more we communicate with our audience, the more we talk with them, the more we listen, and the more we show them and compare with the data. And I think for us, again, transparency being a big thing, I want to share that data, not just say, hey, the data shows that we think this is the right.
So this is what, again, he's just taking the words out of what people are saying about Call of Duty. Call of Duty has all this data and people are like, well, tell us what's going on there. And then this year they finally were like, okay, well, this is what we're doing with matchmaking. And that's what he's saying. He's like, we have this data, we might as well tell it to you.
Choice. So that's why we made that choice. I'd rather say, hey, look, here's the data. This is what we're working with. This is what we've found. I know there's some opinions that maybe contradict this, but we have this data. Let's talk about it. I think there's that language that we have to build with our audience. It's something we want to continue to do for 8 or more years from now. We want to keep having that same kind of dialogue.
So what they're saying is that this is a game that they're going to support for years to come.
What things need to happen for it to achieve that level of success?
It's all about exciting content. Content that just makes you go, I did not expect that. And for us, we have access to every single IP that Ubisoft has ever
Which is really cool.
So everything that you can think of is available to us in some way or format. So when we look at our roadmap, content-wise, we already have most of our content done for the first
I want a Far Cry Primal update.
For our second year. Things like a new faction every season is going to change up the gameplay and change up the meta of the gameplay. I love how our maps, keeping the game fresh, keeping you excited about, there's a new place to play the game in a new and completely surprising location. That's something that...
Yeah, and that's one thing that I will say about this game is they're not going for realism. So because they're not going for realism, they will never get that complaint that Call of Duty gets where half the people playing think it's a mil sim. So they can do really crazy things and be like, yep, what did you expect?
That will really keep this game going for a long period of time.
I imagine it's been a long road to get here. What does this moment mean to you?
This is a special moment to be able to come together and create a brand new IP, a brand new shooter that has so far the amount of attention that this one has had. For me personally, being here today and this moment is just is a huge achievement for myself.
Okay, I'm probably the only one thinking this, but Mark Rubin behind him, they have something blurred out. I don't know whether it's just his camera. He has like a giant TV off to the right-hand side. On the left-hand side, that's either a very large Xerox machine or a very interesting 3D printer. And all I'm thinking about right now is wondering what it is, but we're never gonna know.
For the team, and emotionally, just super excited.
What is it?
Enjoy this one.
Thank you so much. Thank you. It's really exciting. Thank you for having me.
While Mark and team have been working on XDefiant for a while now, for players, the journey is just about to start. For those of you brand new,
I hope they're talking about leveling.
Mark can give you his top tips for each of XDefiant's 5 game modes.
This is the part that I really don't care about.
Starting off with Escort, one of the key things that people don't necessarily realize is that multiple people on the package make it move faster. So when you get the opportunity, you can get a few of the defenders have to respawn.
I really want to skip this, but you guys can skip it if you want to. I'll just make fun of it another time.
For zone control, it's all about pushing or defending.
For zone control, it's all about controlling the zones.
For attackers, having someone as a phantom with either the deployable shield or the blitz shield being able to use that to dive and push into the zones while being supported by healing from Libertad or extra DPS from cleaners will really help you push into those zones. If you're on defense, DeadSet, cleaners, echelon characters, when you're in there and you're able to create the chaos to disrupt the coordinated effort that the offense is putting, that's going to help you win that round. So domination is a pretty well-known and classic game mode. And flanking has always been important in this mode because players are often super focused on the points. And with XDefiant, our factions like Echelon have great abilities to help them be better flankers.
You know, like going invisible.
Another tip for domination is if you can get control of the B point, don't sit back on the point trying to defend. Push a little bit forward, not too much so that you lose your back point, but just enough to interrupt.
He's talking about spawn trapping.
Nice. To be successful on Occupy, it's all about getting to the next point before the other team does.
So that's hard point, by the way.
Rotating out early, knowing where your points are going to spawn, getting there, and keeping an eye on the clock so you can get there early. So Hotshot is basically our TDM mode. It's about getting as many kills as you can and collecting the other player's bounties to increase your score. The key thing is, if the Hotshot is on your team, make sure you try to let that person collect the bounties, because they will be worth 3 points versus 1 point.
That one I'll give you. That one's actually a good tip.
Those are my top tips for each game mode, but in XDefiant, there are always different ways to win. So best of luck to everyone out there.
Nothing cleans like burning. Don't forget to clock out.
For an arena shooter like XDefiant, map knowledge is so important. So to better understand how maps are built, we had creative director Saki Sada break it down.
I guess we're going to go into all of them.
Safi, creative director on XDefiant, and today we're talking about maps. As you may already know, XDefiant is an arcade shooter where many worlds collide. Our goal for maps is to create great shooter layouts that fully embrace the fantasy of the world they come from. We're proud.
So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So 14 maps at launch. I think the only one I don't recognize is Dumbo. And then some of them are specific to modes. I'm sure I've played Dumbo though, but maybe Attica Heights.
Proud to have an extremely diverse pool of maps at launch. You'll feel a big visual contrast when jumping from map to map, ranging from the vibrant and Caribbean-inspired Pueblito from Far Cry 6 to the urban streets of Brooklyn from The Division in Dumbo, or the playful Noodle Tech campus from Watch Dogs 2. That contrast is also something we aim for through the map design, as we always try to convey the original game's layout as much as possible. It helps us make our game richer and more varied, offering players opportunities to use different loadouts and faction combinations to best adapt to the map they play.
Let the cowards run.
A good example is the way we designed the Echelon HQ from scratch, but kept it inspired by Splinter Cell. It's an arena map that offers a lot of...
I do really like that. I like that they have all of these maps from the various games. I think that's really, really cool. Like, I'm not huge on Ubisoft games, but...
It all ties back to the spy.
You know they're going to do Assassin's Creed.
Attica Heights from Ghost Recon Phantoms is another arena map worth mentioning. Since Phantoms was a PvP shooter, we were able to stay closer to the original map layout, which offered a unique set of features. It's fully symmetrical, has long sightlines, pitfalls, and an interesting layered central objective point. Another big element we're proud of.
So this is another part that
these maps are designed for asymmetrical modes that
I know how maps work, you know.
Objectives. We knew these maps and modes would make our faction gameplay shine, but didn't know if it was going to work with our fast TTK. So we first experimented with an escort mode on Times Square, and it was an instant hit with the team. From there, we decided to make linear maps a true part of our core game and added another linear mode called Zone Control.
So they weren't actually originally planning on putting those modes, which is interesting because those are my favorite modes.
Also very distinct and contrasted styles within each map. For example, when playing Meltdown, players start outside on a snowy train track with long sightlines, before getting inside a foundry with more close quarter combat, and then finish in the huge blast furnace circular room. Each zone of the map calls for different gameplay dynamics. We've put a lot of work into the 14 maps going out at launch and already consider them a strong pillar of XDefiant. We're really happy to see the positive reaction so far, so we'll keep pushing on this pillar and intend to release one new map every single month.
A new map every month.
I can't wait to see how players react to some very surprising ones we're currently working on. Thanks for watching, and see you online.
With Mark's game mode tips and Sophie's map walkthrough, you're more than prepared to start racking up wins in XDefiant. But what happens next? How do you go from being good at the game to being great at the game?
Are you going to go into leveling
exactly
or like
we asked
weapon camos or anything
FPS
like that?
Players. Here are their tips on how to play XDefiant like a pro.
You're just going to talk about movement, I'm assuming? Well, you used to be a pro Call of Duty player, I know that.
Top tips to play XDefiant like a pro, I would say number one, your loadout. You got to have the right loadout. You got to get the attachments that are benefiting the playstyle that you want to aim for.
I like to put on attachments that are going to make it quicker. I like to be fast. I like to be mobile. For you, you might need to be more accurate. Either way, try them, see how they fit you, and go from there. If I had to go with like go-to attachments, I'd probably go with Quick Draw. Quick Draw is always a must for me. Just to be able to put my gun up faster.
I want to know if they're going to go into like weapon leveling or anything like that.
On the red dot just so I can be able to see what I'm shooting at. Those are like my two must-haves.
These are all gameplay tips.
I personally love Quick Draw across the board on the SMGs, the assault rifles, and it just makes it so you want to have a good balance of good recoil control, be able to aim in quickly, and be ready for those spontaneous gunfights.
Increases that enforce the enemy advance things, but these are things that are.
Okay, so the end of that was just all pro tips.
X Debrief. Thank you so much for watching. Remember to follow us at PlayXDefiant and submit your questions and game.
They didn't really cover anything that I wanted to particularly see there. I wanted to see more about like how the leveling is going to work, what prestiges are like, things along those lines. If we go to their Twitter, there's a couple things we can learn. They have a thing on their monetization philosophy. And I believe that this essentially just goes how the rewards will work. Free battle pass rewards. They're also going to have a paid battle pass. Focus on customization, weapon skins, MVP, player animations, player cards, emoji packs, character skins, and then even more in the future. And then the offering. So this is the things that you can buy are the premium battle pass, character cosmetics, weapon cosmetics, faction unlocks. That worries me. I wish they went in more depth with that because you can literally unlock the factions by buying them as opposed to leveling up to get them. Player card backgrounds, player animations, and emoji packs. So pretty straightforward as far as monetization goes. We also have Twitch drops, which will be coming. Week 1, you have 30 minutes of weapon boost XP. After 60 minutes, you get this weapon camo. And then 90 minutes, you get an M4A1 camo. And then week 2, new camos. Week 3, new camos. Week 4, I really like that they're doing this. I will be streaming this game. So make sure you follow me on Twitch. It's linked down in the description. And unfortunately, I'm not there on launch day, but we'll be streaming on day 2 and moving forward after that and mixing some Call of Duty in there as well. Other than that, we don't have a lot of the questions I wanted answered today answered. So still waiting to hear about weapon camos, still waiting to hear about leveling and prestiging and things along those lines. But yeah, I just skipped over all the pro player comments because we weren't going to learn anything from that. But anyway, let me know what you're thinking of XDefiant. If you're going to be playing it, if you want to watch me play it, make sure you subscribe and everything like that. But as always, thank you so much for watching. Peace.
Available for tasking.
The next video that I wanted to watch is it's a longer one, but it's really good. I've actually watched this one before. It's got by a guy named Prime P, and he made a video called "Stop Playing Ranked: The Proof." And essentially, this one is about how ranked play is rigged in Modern Warfare 3, or rigged in a way. So, yeah, You'll see what I mean when we get into it, but it's a really good video. We'll have it linked somewhere, probably if you're watching this on YouTube, down in the description. But check this video out. It's really good, and I kind of wanted to give you my opinion on it because I think a lot of what he says in here is very right.
Call of Duty's ranked mode is awfully designed. It's not meant to give you a viable competitive experience. It's not meant to reward you for being good at the game, and it's not meant to have integrity.
I agree with what he's saying here, but not for the reasons that you're thinking. So the reasons that I disliked other games for their ranked play was because the SR system was crap and it was designed to just suck time out of you, and it had nothing to do with skill level. He does talk about that, and I have seen this video before, but I think it's a really good watch.
In COD, it's meant for player retention and addiction, and by that standard, it's rigged. Let me explain. Modern Warfare 3's ranked mode uses something called hidden MMR. MMR stands for matchmaking rank, and being hidden means that only the matchmaking algorithm knows what your matchmaking rank is. You can't see it. MMR is essentially just your skill rating, and just to add to the silliness, this same rating is also used in public matches to the same degree it is in ranked. Now, before I get started, here's the best COD player in the world talking about how hidden MMR is a horrible idea in ranked before I get started.
There's no way this is how ranked is supposed to be. There shouldn't be a hidden MMR inside of ranked.
So essentially what they're saying here is that you have your ranked rank, which will display as like iridescent or whatever you're placed into. But you also have a hidden rank, the hidden MMR, and that's the main thing that they're going to talk about throughout this, and it makes no sense.
What the f is the point of ranked
exactly
if there's a hidden MMR? It just doesn't make sense. It's like skill-based matchmaking in public games. Why the f would you have skill-based in a public game?
Now, this is immediately where the first problem arises. When you're matched in a rank mode by hidden MMR first, and then rank as a secondary parameter, it completely takes away any kind of integrity that a ranked mode has. Let's say, for example, it is the start of a season, and you, along with the rest of the player base, are in bronze.
This is the best point that he makes, I think.
Queue up for a match, you're not actually able to match against every single player that's in bronze.
Which makes no sense.
Only able to match against players that have a hidden MMR that's near enough to yours within that rank and a little bit outside of your rank. So despite the entire population of players being ranked in bronze at the start of a season, you can only experience the game with a tiny percentage of them because the hidden MMR takes away a vast majority of your play options, given as it's heavily prioritized. Imagine that you're an iridescent player from the previous season. Now you're in bronze again at the start of the next season, but you're only playing against other previously iridescent level players as well.
So the thing that I would want to know with this is, does it only take, because ranked is a very different beast than regular multiplayer. It's very different. And different weapons, different things you can use, things are banned, you play differently, it's different. And I'm curious if it, like what he's explaining here is that if you're an iridescent in one season, you go back to bronze at the beginning of the season, most of the players that you're going to be playing, yes, are in bronze, but they weren't iridescent before, so really you're just playing against iridescent players. I'm also curious if it takes your stats from regular multiplayer and puts those into effect as well. Like, just like there's skill-based matchmaking in regular play, do they take that and also add that? I can't remember if he goes into that or not, but...
Meaning that you're playing the most stiff competition in the entire game, but you're in the lowest rank. That doesn't make a lick of sense. Additionally, let's say you're not that good at the game and you're in bronze at the start of the season. Now, instead of facing that previously mentioned intense competition, you're facing other players who may have the same lack of skill that you do. So, two players in bronze can be in the same league, but one is playing against the top 10% exclusively, and the other is playing against the bottom 10% exclusively. In the context of a ranked mode, it doesn't make any sense. Instead of being matched with other players by rank,
if you're playing against the bottom 10% of players, you should just be playing in bronze.
You're being matched based on hidden MMR, or your skill rating, that you don't know, and your actual rank is highly secondary. This kind of system creates two fundamental problems. Number one, it invalidates the meaning of each rank, because within each rank, there is a huge skill disparity, regardless of the rank you're talking about. Just like bronze has extremely high-level players and low-level players at the start of a season. Instead of each rank having a discernible skill and competency level, and growing past that level allows you to rank up, you rank up solely on the basis that you beat players of your own exact skill level, whether you're a great player.
Which, by the way, with what I was saying, I like the SR system if it worked the way as intended. However, it doesn't, that's what he's saying here, because you were only playing players of your skill level, which means it's not actually, your rank isn't actually a means of how good you are. It's a means of how much you have played the game against similar skill level players.
or not so great. This ties into number 2, which is the fact that it eliminates any semblance of the rewarding nature of a ranked mode. It doesn't reward improvement because you're constantly playing people with very similar skills to you, regardless of your rank. And if you improve, your competition is just going to get proportionally more difficult, but your rank stays exactly the same. In other words, instead of allowing you to rank up when you surpass the skill ceiling of a particular rank, the game punishes you for improving because as soon as you improve, you don't promote in rank. You just play higher level players within that same rank. Your improvement and skill level is not at all reflected in your rank. So
to play devil's advocate real quickly, I completely believe what he's saying here, by the way. But just to play devil's advocate, I don't think he provides any proof that this is what's going on, but as we see players like Scump and things like that are saying that this is what's happening, and then I think he might go into it a bit, but he talks about these high-level players getting reset at the beginning of a season and then still playing against those high-level players, not getting against a normal bronze player.
So these are obviously 2 huge problems. So how do other games mitigate this problem, and why doesn't COD mitigate this?
I love that he goes into this because it actually gives a way to actually do this in game that makes sense.
Well, to start, games with any competitive integrity don't use hidden MMR, and more critically, use what are called placement matches, which I'm sure you're probably familiar with. Placement matches allow
So the first time I experienced that was in StarCraft 2.
Players to have their skills evaluated, and based on that evaluation, they're placed in the rank that best embodies their skills. This does 2 very positive things. Firstly, it allows each rank to have a defined skill and competency level. That is, you can tell the difference.
So what that would look like in Call of Duty is at the beginning of a season or when you started playing, you play 5 placement matches and it takes into account your score per minute, whether you win, whether you lose, everything like that. And it'd be like, I think you are a platinum player, right in the middle. And then from there, you can level up or level down based off of that. Whereas this just throws you in bronze right away. You'd think you'd be competing against bronze players, but as we see, that's not the case.
It's between a platinum and a bronze player because one player clearly demonstrates better mechanics and skills. Secondly, it allows you to quickly rank up once you gain the skills necessary to break out of your current rank. It is a very healthy competitive environment because it rewards skill improvement with promotions. Players being ranked based on their skill and matched together exclusively within their rank with other players with similar skill offers a much more competitively viable ecosystem. On the flip side, you have the way COD handles it, which does the opposite of what placement matches accomplish. First, because everyone starts in the same place and has to climb, but only plays against players of their own skill level while doing so, each rank does not have a discernible average skill level.
It's just about time played, because over time your SR is going to go up and you're playing against similar skill level players. That's what I hate in rank play. I don't want it to be a time grind. I want it to be how good you are grinding.
Rank has really good players, mediocre players, and bad players. Now, you can argue that the higher ranks, like Crimson and Iridescent, are only composed of good players. And while that's probably the case, my argument still very much stands for the first 5 ranks at least. And the only reason the higher ranks are filled with exclusively good players is because they're the ones that want to put in the most time. This all happens because you're matched based on hidden MMR, not rank. And there are no placement matches. This takes away the definition ranks have, and there can easily be no difference in skill between a bronze and a diamond player, or inversely, an average level diamond player that plays ranked more could get smoked by a really good bronze player that just doesn't happen to play ranked that much. It hilariously doesn't make any sense, and as absurd as that example sounds, it's entirely realistic. Further, if you're a great player starting in bronze, you're playing against really tough competition the entire time it takes to get to gold, for example. If you're an average player, you're playing average level competition the entire time it takes to get to gold. The point is, because the journey to each rank is different for every level of player because of your hidden MMR being measured, ranks have no discernible or fair skill disparities. Ranks are based mostly on your time investment because your competition getting there is constantly equal to you, regardless of the rank that you're in. A mediocre player who grinds to platinum had an entirely different experience than a very...
And yes, if you've played more, you are probably going to be a better player. Most likely. I think that's fair to say. But at the same time, it isn't necessarily the case. That's why if you watch someone play, you can probably be like, oh, that person looks like a diamond player because of the time they've put into it. But in reality, that entire time, they've probably been playing against the same skill level player.
Grinding the platinum. And in a ranked mode, that doesn't make any sense. They're in the same rank, yet both face significantly disproportionate levels of challenges in order to actually get there. It has no competitive integrity whatsoever. Improvement is not rewarded. Actually, the lower your hidden MMR, the less challenging it is to rank up, which means that technically you are fully able to reverse boost in Call of Duty's ranked mode and still somehow rank up multiple times. Any game with a good ranked mode will have two fundamental principles that I covered earlier. One, players are matched exclusively based on their rank alone and are placed there by placement matches, which is an evaluation of skill. And two, improvement is rewarded by a promotion because you've surpassed the skill ceiling of your rank. Once players learn to improve past that skill ceiling, they will be able to promote into the next rank, which they've earned and deserve. In a good ranked mode that has integrity, your rank actually means something and accurately reflects your current skill level. COD's ranked mode goes against these two fundamental principles. One, you're matched by hidden MMR, which, as we discussed earlier, creates vast skill disparities within every rank, taking away the definition of each rank and invalidating the meaning of being a certain rank. And two, improvement is punished because instead of surpassing your rank skills,
which oddly is a very similar way to what the way that they deal with it in non-ranked, is you get put up against similar skill level players, except you just don't have a rank that goes with
ceiling, allowing you to promote. You're instead instantly matched with better players without changing your rank at all, making your journey to the next rank not easier, but much more difficult. So now that we've established that COD's ranked mode is fundamentally flawed and is horrendously designed, we must ask, why is this a thing? Why have a ranked mode without placement matches where ranks are meaningless and where your improvement is punished? Well, it all circles back to player retention, as most everything in COD is about nowadays.
I was just about to say, which all of Call of Duty
hold on. How can a ranked system so objectively terrible breed player retention? Well, this is going to shock you and scare you. We have to remember that this same system is present within public matches as well. COD is no stranger to hidden MMR because that's exactly what's been used in pubs for the last 6 years. Except we're missing a key detail that we're now going to apply to the ranked mode, which should scare you a little. All signs point to Call of Duty using EOMM, or
oh, I thought it was supposed to be scary.
Engagement optimized matchmaking, which, if you're unfamiliar, is a matchmaking algorithm that puts you into matches that are the most likely.
This is what skill-based matchmaking actually is, by the way.
To keep you engaged in the game. This matchmaking is based on research by the people who invented it that shows that inconsistent results breed a higher amount of player retention. For example, consistent losses render the player twice as likely to get off the game than if they experienced a draw, loss, and then a win. All you need to know is that it's a matchmaking algorithm that throws you rigged matches.
Which is crazy, because if you look at that, it also says that you have a higher chance of getting off if you win 3 games in a row. So they try to make it so that you have a mixture of
to make
all
you
of them.
perform a certain way, to force a certain result on you and keep you more interested in the game that way. And in the study, they've actually compared it to other forms of matchmaking, such as connection-based matchmaking, random matchmaking, and skill-based matchmaking. And in practice, it outperforms all of them. Now, here's the real scary part. Say that I want to throw a player a loss, another loss, and then a win, because within this data, it's shown to have the smallest risk of the player getting off the game. What parameters must I take into account in order to guarantee this player has this string of results? Well, if you couldn't guess, the most important parameter I have to take into account is their skill level, because otherwise, how would I throw them a match that's guaranteed to force a loss on them? I'd have to somehow measure their skill level, turn it into a numerical value, and then throw them into a game where they're inherently at a disadvantage.
So an easy way to look at that is you play enough, and say they rank players from 1 to 100. And you are a 69 out of 100. They take into account maybe how many bullets you hit out of all of them, how fast you play, your score per minute, your kill death, your win-loss, and you get ranked to 69. They want you to lose. They are going to put you in a game where you're somewhat evenly distributed, but everyone on the other team is higher than a 69. Or they really want you to lose if you've won too many in a row. Now everyone's going to be an 80 while you're still a 69.
Or maybe I'll put them into a match where their bullet damage is slightly handicapped. Or more notably, and Modern Warfare 3 players can relate to this, their spawns are so bad to the point where they can't possibly perform well because they're spawning in front of people.
So I believe people have tested reduced bullet damage. 69, nice. I believe people have tested the reduced bullet damage with engagement optimized matchmaking, and I believe that was found to be false. Now, worse spawns, that one I have not heard before.
Too far away from people, too far away from the objective, or they're just getting killed from their opponents revenge spawning. Long story short, the #1 parameter taken into account to force results on you to breed player retention is your skill level. And ironically, let's not forget that hidden MMR is your skill rating. If you were able to see your hidden MMR on the lobby screen before a match, you could easily tell if a game was meant to be extremely competitive, like this game, where everyone's hidden MMR is almost exactly the same, thus resulting in an extremely competitive.
By the way, I don't think there's like a way to see your hidden MMR, but
match where everyone almost has the same skill level, or extremely one-sided, like a guaranteed win, like this example, or a loss where one team's skill level.
But that's the thing, is when you're playing ranked play, you're supposed to be able to see where you fall in line. So if you get in a game and you're a higher rank than everyone else, you're supposed to be the best player in that lobby. But because your actual MMR you can't see, it's silly. And I would actually prefer if they got rid of the ranks and just showed your MMR. And yeah, you could put rewards with that, but in my opinion, it'd be better.
Heavily in favor because they're just better, or well balanced, which almost never happens, that has a variety of skill levels on every team.
And that's what regular multiplayer is supposed to be.
It's because if it were visible, there would be clear proof that you're intended to have a certain experience within every single match.
I'm fine with not seeing an MMR in public matches, but when you're playing ranked,
is what Activision wants. But we have to understand that hidden MMR is the foundation for rigged games. It is the foundation for EOMM, a well-known rigged matchmaking practice that Call of Duty undoubtedly uses. And we know they use it because 1, matches take forever to find because they're trying to find an engaging match. 2, your ping is routinely awful because it's sacrificing your connection to give you a more engaging match. And 3, the player experience suggests that
I just always get packet burst,
or they just get rigged spawns, rigged damage, or other rigged parameters that force a certain result on them regardless of the match. So we have to wonder, if EOMM can breed player retention in pubs, what's stopping it from doing that in ranked? Likewise, why wouldn't they use it in ranked if they already use it in pubs and it's shown to work? After all, in ranked, if you can't recall, we're matched exclusively by hidden MMR, and rank is incredibly secondary. If you're in bronze, you can match with anyone up to around platinum as long as their hidden MMR is around the same as yours. This doesn't make any sense in regards to a ranked mode. So while rank isn't totally disregarded, it holds very little significance, as we established much earlier. Additionally, isn't it a little strange how there are no placement matches and instead everyone starts in bronze and matches based on hidden?
Which is super weird because when this first came out, I didn't even think of that. I was like, yeah, that makes sense. You start at the lowest rank. But like when you really think about it, that makes no sense because then everyone is just ranked bronze. And then everyone should be playing against, it should be like playing pub matches when it first starts. But yeah.
MMR in order to rank up the entire time. This is certainly about player retention. Starting at the very bottom means that you'll have to work harder to climb to the top, obviously, instead of being fairly placed on a rung in the competitive ladder that accurately reflects your skill level based on placement matches. This means that players have to play for longer to rank up. As a result, this ends up giving Activision player retention. But this is where it actually gets a little terrifying. What is mainly reliant on hidden MMR in order to breed higher amounts of player retention? What single-handedly ruins the public match experience? And what is in their best interest to use in ranked in order to retain players for longer? What fits this goal of player retention perfect?
I'm assuming he's just going with engagement optimized matchmaking.
And if they're going purely for player retention, would be stupid not to use it. Well, you guessed it, EOMM. Yes, what I'm trying to tell you is that every single sign, every questionable attribute of COD's ranked mode is only there because Call of Duty uses engagement optimized matchmaking within its ranked mode as well. Hidden MMR allows you to be thrown into matches where your result is guaranteed because you can artificially set up certain skill disparities between teams, forcing results. And if you're trying to climb the ranks, slowing you down on purpose by throwing you a game with other players that are conveniently 7 times your ranked level or conveniently 3 ranks above you with the intent to make you lose that match is a guaranteed way to retain players that are climbing the ranks. You're slowing down their progress towards their ultimate.
Which, what he's not saying there is, I think it's pretty rare that you're playing in a bronze lobby and then you get up against a whole lobby of diamonds. But if there's a bunch of people in bronze, because Call of Duty is a big game, that have the hidden MMR and are way better than you and they want to hand you a loss, they're going to do that, and you won't be able to see it, and it's not going to feel like you're just going to feel like you're the worst bronze player, when in reality these are actually diamond players. They just haven't played that much yet.
Goal of reaching their desired rank. And since these are the more competitive players, they're almost guaranteed not to give up if they're unaware of what's going on. If they're going for player retention, it would be highly counterproductive to not also throw an EOMM on top of these pre-existing practices that are designed to retain players as well. So even though hidden MMR in a ranked mode is a big no-no, they've not only done it within their ranked mode, but they've made it increasingly obvious that their ranked mode is purely about player retention by designing it to allow even bad and mediocre players to climb to higher ranks without as great of a challenge as good players.
Yeah, exactly what you're saying, Bonsai. It's crazy to think they have any matchmaking system in ranked that isn't just the ranked, right? Like, that should be the matchmaking. Is you're playing ranked, they're going to put you against the players closest to your rank, and that's who you're going to play against. You beat them, you go up a rank. They lose, you go down a rank. And then you play slightly better or slightly worse people. But that's not what's happening.
Forcing everyone to start on ground zero instead of using placement matches to measure their skill. But what glues all these pieces together is the ranked experience in general. From the games that I've played personally, I can tell you that there is something definitely going on that throws you matches you're guaranteed to lose. And even though I've only played ranked a few times, the bronze lobbies I've gotten were just as sweaty as my public matches. And in pubs, I'm consistently matching against Crimson players, Iridescent players, or top 250 players. It doesn't make any sense unless hidden MMR is being used. Additionally, after my team and I won a good amount of games, we were thrown into a match with players that significantly exceeded our ranks. We were nowhere above ranked level 4, and most of us had just started out, and we matched against a team where nobody had a rank below 30. We were playing a game against players that literally exclusively played ranked, grinded it non-stop, and knew exactly what they were doing. And most of them were in silver while we were in bronze. I have no doubt that other players have also experienced this.
So, what would make sense is, say that this happened. You should, and if you're a good player and you're in bronze and you're getting a lot of wins, and all of a sudden they put you up against a bunch of silver players, you should get more SR and gain more to your rank if you win that game against them, because you should be leveled up faster. Because it's not just a time dump. If you're beating silver or you play in bronze and you beat a bunch of golds, it should bump you up to closer to gold after winning that game against them. And it should bump the gold players down further, but that's not what happens.
As well, and that definitely wouldn't happen if hidden MMR wasn't measured. And that's not just anecdotal from me. I found a good amount of Reddit threads talking about the horrible matchmaking within ranked. I'll link that down below. All of this evidence I just laid out points to one thing: ranked is rigged. Since EOMM uses hidden MMR to rig your matches in pubs, ranked is definitely no different.
I also like that in this video, he immediately gave a way to fix it. Immediately. He said, we need placement matches. Done. You get placed in, no hidden MMR, your rank is your rank.
It's not like Activision didn't also design the ranked mode. Their intentions are exactly the same. The ranked match that I described that I was playing, where my team was significantly outmatched, was not an even match. It wasn't designed to be even. These players didn't realistically belong in bronze and silver for how much they played ranked, and for their level. This game was a result of us winning too much, and as a result, the algorithm threw us a match we were supposed to lose. Every time this happens, where you're thrown into a ranked match where you're clearly outmatched by players, which happens more than it should within any ranked mode, it's the EOMM abusing the hidden MMR based system that's already initial.
Which that wouldn't be a problem if you were rewarded properly rank wise for beating them, because then it would just kind of be a tester match to see, oh, is this person actually a silver? Is this person actually a gold? But that's not what they're doing.
Horrible and in place, and then taking it to the next degree purely for player retention. So all I'm saying is, maybe don't play COD's ranked mode. Sure, the competitive rule set is fun, playing the objective is a nice change of pace, and having 4 people on a team makes it easier to play with a full squad of friends. But if you think that climbing the ranks is actually fair, and each game already doesn't have some sort of predetermined outcome, whether it's designed to be even or tilted too much in one team's favor, take a step back and really question how the mode is designed. Call of Duty Ranked is very obviously designed exclusively for player retention, and as such, it's extremely prone to being rigged by the same EOMM algorithm that is already rigging our public matches. Here's the definitive conclusion for you. All the evidence. Do with it what you must. Call of Duty's ranked mode goes against everything a ranked mode should be. Improvement is punished with harder lobbies. Ranks don't have any meaning because any...
Okay, well, that first one's wrong. Like, improvement you should get better in ranked mode and then play against better players. Like, that's the way it should work. You shouldn't be punished for having a hidden MMR, but as you improve in ranked, you should play better play.
Anyone can get to any rank if they play enough, and you don't have any placement matches, which further takes away every rank's definition. All of these signs indisputably guarantee that COD's ranked mode uses hidden MMR, which should never be present in any ranked mode. This clearly indicates that ranked is all about player retention, as it doesn't annoy bad players and have them get hard stuck in bronze, and it forces you to grind instead of having placement matches, making it so you have to spend significantly longer to get to your desired rank than you otherwise would have to do in a normal ranked mode with placement matches. With the obvious desire for player retention comes the implication that they'd be stupid not to use the same form of matchmaking that breeds player retention in their public matches, EOMM. Not using EOMM would be foolish because it exactly aids them towards player retention, and there's no two ways about it. EOMM throws you predetermined match outcomes in order to breed player retention by slowing down your ranking process. More than enough ranked players have noticed that their ranked experience is so far from the norm, and that it takes longer to find matches the more that you're winning, and that they're matching far outside of their rank when it should be easy to find a match in your rank. The usage of EOMM in ranked is backed up by Activision's obvious philosophy of player retention over competitive integrity, as we see in their public matches. And not only that, but the entire player experience in ranked, which you can read about online, and Activision's history as a company, and how they've approached their matchmaking in the last 5 years' time. Since EOMM is an inherently rigged matchmaking algorithm that predetermines match outcomes, and it's being used in ranked, this leads us to believe that Call of Duty's ranked mode is rigged. And as a result, I'd recommend you stop playing it altogether until they fix it. Let me know your thoughts on the...
They won't. They will not fix it, and the proof is in the pudding, because this is something that I have had an issue with in ranked for a very long time, and why I don't normally play it in Call of Duty. Some modes are better than others. Black Ops 2 I believe it was, that's the one that was really good. But the thing you have to remember is that when we have all of this going on, every single rank mode that I think we've received in Call of Duty has all been about playtime. Like, your rank is just, the more you play, the more rank you have, because there is no placement matches. And I hate that. I hate that to rank up in something, you need to put a ton of... If I'm an amazing player and I can only play 3 games a week, I should be able to get into the, maybe not top 250, but the top rank. And then if I want to grind out the top 250, yeah, those players will constantly be on. But you should be able to. It shouldn't be a time dump. It should be a test of how good you are at the game. And that's something that other games that are extremely popular, Counter-Strike, does very well. Is Warzone ranked the same way? I would be willing to bet that it is. I would be willing to bet that it is. I don't know that, and it's probably more varied, but it's definitely, they want... The difference with Warzone ranked is you're not going to win every game. Ranking up isn't based off of winning every game. So yeah. But that was a really good video. You guys should check out that video.
The comments.
It was by Prime Pete. Prime Pete makes great videos, and that's the only one I've seen from him, and it's a really, really good video. He did a good job on it, so check it out.
So it looks like Illuminati has quit YouTube. With all the drama that she's been involved with first Legal Eagle, and then also her former friends, former members of Sad Milk, H-Bomber Guy, Cruel World, Happy Mind, and a million other things, she may have finally left YouTube. And I will say, at least from my point of view, I was never trying to run her off YouTube, and I don't think anybody else was either, but we can still talk about things without trying to drive somebody away. So this is not talking about a successful canceling or something like that. This is talking about most people didn't want to watch her anymore because they didn't agree with her behavior. Her own behavior, things that she did and said herself, as much as she will try to claim that this is all a conspiracy, which we're going to talk more about in a minute. As of now, her last video was almost 2 months ago, nearly 3 months at this point. And although it is possible for YouTubers to take breaks, and it is possible that she's taking a break, YouTubers do take breaks all the time. Sometimes I disappear, not usually for 2 months, but it has happened. What you need to remember is that Illuminati is a business. It's not just a single creator. She has multiple employees, and 2 months is a really long time to go without any extra income. Now, I'm not saying she's not making any money, because she currently has 386 patrons. Now, her lowest tier is $5. So even if everybody is subscribed to the lowest tier on her Patreon, then she's making $1,930 a month on Patreon before taxes and before Patreon takes their fees. But it's probably more than that, because her top tier is $14.50. Now, that's a decent amount of money to be making on Patreon, but the bulk of her money probably would have come from the YouTube AdSense, from sponsorships, things like that, and she's not getting any views because she's not uploading anything. And with that amount of Patreon money alone, and maybe some residual views on older videos, maybe some other streams revenue that she has going, that is not enough to be able to pay your multiple employees. You will have to be paying them out of pocket. And that's bearing in mind that before all this happened, it was said that she was getting rid of some of her employees because she couldn't afford to pay them anymore, because she wasn't making as much money. People weren't really watching anymore. Her views had dipped substantially. She was at a point where she was getting hundreds and thousands, sometimes over 1 million views on videos, down to getting 10,000, 15,000, 30,000, 50,000, which is, you know, they're good views. They're not little views. That's, you know, around what I get, but it's not enough to pay employees. Sometimes not even enough for me to pay myself. So I don't know how she was doing it. So it may just be the case that she's decided this channel is not viable anymore. I can't pay these people. I'm just going to end it. It's also possible that she has another channel somewhere else. If you remember from her Patreon DM links, which were from Discord, that was leaked by FPS Diesel. Shout out to FPS Diesel. In those, she was talking about creating a new project, which would be a new channel, Prism of the Past, which would remove her from the equation a bit, but it would still be hers. She'd still be making the money. Before we move on with the rest of the video though, have you heard that flavored air is quickly becoming the leading alternative to vaping and smoking? This is something that I'm very happy about, by the way, because I don't know if you know this about me, but I absolutely despise vapes. Hate them. Can't stand them. But what I do like is Fume, who are leading the new movement towards better habits. Fume is an award-winning flavored air device. It helps you fill the void after you ditch a bad habit, because it gives you something that you can still reach for. And it is not a vape. There is no vapor, no nicotine, no toxic flavors, and no batteries. With Fume, you just draw flavored air into your mouth. And flavored air isn't all like vaping. If vaping was like a fizzy drink, some kind of sweet, sticky drink, then Fume and the flavored cores that they use are kind of closer to herbal tea. And Fume has a ton of really delicious flavors to choose from. Some of my favorites are the crisp mint and orange vanilla. Fume continuously invests in third-party studies to ensure the safety of their products, and it's also backed by doctors in the US. They have served over 150,000 customers, and you could be their next success story. So for a limited time, you can use my code VANGELINASCOV to get 10% off the journey pack. Head to tryfume.com, that's tryfum.com, and use code VANGELINASCOV, or you can scan the QR code on screen and save 10% off your order today. Thank you so much to Fume for sponsoring today's video. Now let's get on with the rest of it. Now, since it was announced that Prism of the Past was going to be hers and people found out, it's likely that she dropped that because she didn't want to be involved with it. She didn't want her bad reputation to taint her potential to make money. So it's possible she started an entirely new project with somebody else voicing it, and she's just overseeing the whole thing. I use overseeing lightly because she has writers and she has editors, and it's even been pointed out that she often potentially didn't even know anything about the topic. You will find out information on that in my interview with one of her ex-employees, but that made it look like she really just kind of showed up and read a script, which makes sense because she used to always pronounce things wrong. In fairness, I pronounce things wrong too. Sometimes words are difficult, even though I will have done all the research myself because I don't have anybody else working on this channel. It's just me. So I will have researched stuff, but I will pronounce things wrong because I'm dumb. And sometimes I won't notice that I pronounce them wrong until I'm editing editing and it's too late to fix it and it's painful. There was one video actually in particular, and I remember this, and I know how to pronounce Sakura. I know how to pronounce Sakura. So I don't know why in this video I kept saying Sakura. I've never said it in my life, but I just kept saying it and I didn't notice while I was editing it. So I like to give people the benefit of the doubt with stuff like that, but it happens so often with her. People really think it just points to her not knowing what the hell she's talking about. She just read the script and that was it.
Kirby is only a symptom. Corporate greed may exist everywhere, yes, but these unchecked tippy tops of MLM pyramids are especially dangerous. The Herald announced that in 2015, W1 was officially closing their doors. One didn't even have stockholder meetings, only one single board meeting during Kirby's tenure. And he had a ton of secret deals behind closed doors. Sure, there are plenty of articles about Kirby and the strange products, but I don't see it said enough that Woon failed themselves.
So if she has a new channel, how involved with it she is really, you know, it's to be said. She's probably just like a figurehead that's hiring people, just sort of the boss, but everybody else is doing the thing. And I think it's quite likely that she did start a new channel. I mean, it's not like she's gonna leave YouTube and suddenly decide, you know what, I'm gonna go get a real job. I mean, maybe she did. She had also been talking about in the Discord leaks getting some teaching experience. She was going to be teaching business ethics, which is very funny. If you know, she's not the most ethical business person from my perspective, but maybe she did go get a real job. I think it's more likely that she has left this channel for good and she has just started a new one. She just cut her losses because the growth is not growing on this channel. The algorithm does not like this channel anymore. And if you look up Illuminati, her channel doesn't come up first. Videos about her come up first, so that's not good for your branding. It is also possible she'll come back to this channel. We don't know. We just have to wait and see. But what we do know at the moment is that, well, she's alive. There's nothing wrong with her. She's fine. She didn't disappear because she's like in danger or something. And we know this because of the legal proceedings going on at the moment. And actually, before I talk about that in more detail, I completely forgot to say this. I was supposed to say this at the start of the video. But there is a little surprise for you guys after the last Illuminati update, and if you'll see that, you'll know exactly what this is referring to. But after that video, I immediately went and I put out the Small Clams Court merch. It still makes me laugh. Swear to God. So if you'd like to get that, there you go. You may go get that. And I'll probably release like a downloadable just picture version for the patrons and the members, so if you want to get that, you can join either of those. But you can also get the Small Clams Court merch, so check that out. I don't think I'll keep it up forever. It's going to be pretty limited. I'll probably just leave it up for this week and then I'll get rid of it again, but it was just funny, so check it out while it's up. Enjoy. So the legal stuff so far, just a quick recap in case you've forgotten or you're unsure what's going on, is that Illuminati has brought a legal case against Oz Media, Felix the Kit Kat, and Wonderstruck Guy. There's been some back and forth with Illuminati making her complaints, accusing them of things like breach of contract and defamation, and then those people then coming back and asking the judge to dismiss the claims based on them being based on nothing, essentially. The problem with Illuminati's legal case, besides some typos, check out the Small Clams Court merch, besides that was that she was making all these claims about things like defamation or about breach of contract, but she was not giving concrete examples of what was defamatory. What did these people say about her that was defamatory, and where did they say it, and when did they say it? There was not enough clear examples of things. There was not enough evidence. Even though this is just the claim, it hasn't gone to court yet. Most of the evidence will be brought up in court, but there still does need to be something. You can't just say this happened and the judge goes, okay, let's bring it to court. Let's use resources. No, you have to actually make proper claims and give some kind of citation or evidence. So the judge gave her another chance. Now, she'd made 2 complaints. So the first complaint, then she amended her complaint, and then the judge said, this is not working. There is not enough in this. You have 2 weeks to fix this, to amend your complaint by adding exact citations and where this happened, when it happened, what they said. She was late, but she did do the amended complaint. She submitted it. She added some evidence It doesn't seem satisfactory to me as somebody without a legal background, but what do I know? But she also added things that hadn't been brought up before. Like, she brought up this whole thing about privacy protection, that Oz Media had accessed her computer without her permission, and that had never been mentioned before, so she just brought this up. Oz Media then asked the court one more time to dismiss this, saying that there still isn't evidence and there are these extra things being brought up that weren't brought up before, and again, there's no evidence for it. And now Illuminati's team has responded to that. Now, I'm just going to go over this very briefly because some of you may be aware of this already, some of you may not be, but shout out to Matt Katster for finding these, but we'll just go through it quickly. This case exists because Blair began dating someone new and her ex-boyfriend Oz did not like it. Rather than respect her choices, defendant began a social media revenge campaign against her by publishing false and harmful statements about her and her once lucrative business. I loved the once lucrative business line. Given the intensity of Oz's lashing out, one might imagine that Blair had flaunted her new relationship or done something, anything, that would have prompted a reasonable person to act the way that Oz did. But she did no such thing. She is just an innocent baby victim. Indeed, her new relationship was not public. Oz learned of the relationship only when he accessed Blair's personal computer without her permission and snooped through her private messages. To be sure, not all relationships end well. Even the best endings can cause strife if a former romantic partner moves on and begins another relationship. It goes without saying, however, that defendant's discomfort at Blair's new relationship did not authorize him to publish false and harmful personal attacks against Blair. Jesus, Mary and Holy Saint Joseph, right? So what she and her team are saying here is that he is defaming her, that Oz Media is defaming Blair because she got a new boyfriend and he didn't like it and he just jealous. And because he's jealous, he somehow rallied all these other people who spoke badly about her to harass her and defame her. How does that make any sense? Firstly, a lot of this stuff comes from her herself. Like, she published private things about Wonderstruck. Nobody asked her to do that. She just did that. That was bad. This only all happened because she falsely accused Legal Eagle of plagiarism. She did that herself. And why, in the name of God, would anybody else in this situation care that Blair got in a new relationship if Oz Media is the ex? Why would anybody care? Like, no offense to Oz, you know, friends are supposed to care about you and all of that, but why would they care to the extent of, like, making a whole conspiracy to defame her, to go out of their way to spread lies about her? Like, why would they care? If my friend, who I love and care for, came to me and said, oh, this person that I broke up with a while ago, they're in a new relationship, let's ruin them, I'd be like, are you okay? You should check yourself in somewhere. People don't do that. And even if Oz Media somehow is this evil mastermind and he's convinced one person, right? One person to side with him in this campaign against Illuminati of lies and deceit and defamation. How did he convince all of them? How did he convince Wonderstruck Guy, The Click, one topic at a time? And not only that, also Felix the Kit Kat, who, if you remember, published the DMs. Jesus, I couldn't think of the word DMs for a second. Can you guys tell that I'm a bit tired? Published the DMs of a conversation between him and Blair where it looks like Blair is trying to hire him, is offering to give him $200 if he'll dig up dirt on The Click. That didn't have anything to do with Oz Media. That didn't involve Oz Media. That went through The Click. So also we now have, like, Oz Media has somehow convinced Felix the Kit Kat to be involved in this. Okay. And we also have Cruel World of Happy Mind, who was not in this friend group, who was not involved with Sad Milk, who also had a negative experience with Blair. Did Oz Media convince Cruel World Happy Mind to be part of this conspiracy? We also have Tommy C, who had a bad experience with Illuminati. Again, not in this friend group. Did Oz Media convince Tommy C to say bad things about Illuminati years ago? Doesn't make any sense at all. Like, you're planning this big conspiracy here. It cannot possibly be that deep. Again, if there is proof, right, if there's concrete proof that this is a big conspiracy and they're all lying, then I will take it back, right? But there's no proof. We've not seen any proof. So as of now, it's just people have had bad experiences with Blair. They've separately had bad experiences. They've come out and said it. And to me, it just looks like Blair doesn't like that, so she's come up with the story. It's, oh, I got a new boyfriend, and he doesn't like that. So there's a conspiracy against me, because I am that special. I am the main character. The rest of the document then goes on to say why it shouldn't be thrown out, why her case should remain, saying that she did give quotes as was asked by her from the court. These are quotes and links and timestamps for defamatory statements. Also saying that Oz and his team cited that one of the reasons this should be thrown out is because she brought up a new claim, which is the computer thing, but that wasn't in her original complaint. And because the court had only asked her to fix her original complaint by adding quotes and timestamps and links, that she shouldn't have added this. But Blair is saying, no, absolutely can add this. And also, why didn't Oz Media refute the claim? Well, they're not refuting the claim because they're saying this doesn't have any basis to be in it. So why would he need to refute the claim if he's saying this claim shouldn't even be? It then goes on to say that it also shouldn't be thrown out because it brings up the breach of contract claim, and it goes on to state some of the ways that they believe that Oz Media breached contract. This is because he said things like, anything Blair needed to say went through me first, essentially act as a spokesperson. I always acted as her talking piece, from yelling at one topic to berating Click and other things I did in service of Illuminati. And they argue that this is a breach of contract because in the contract it said that they can't give out information and data not generally known outside the company concerning Illuminati or its business, including but not limited to all other concepts or ideas involving or reasonably related to the business. That's a very broad statement. I can't tell you whether this encompasses that or not. Mad Catster seems to think that it doesn't. I have no legal background, so I'm not sure. But to me, it seems like what he said about his role was quite vague. Like, it didn't say anything to do with internal structures of the business or anything like that. It was just like, you know, I was kind of doing a lot of the talking in the company. That doesn't feel in any way damaging to me. Moving on then, in Oz Media's request to remove this whole case, he had tried to claim that this is a slap suit, which is essentially just a suit where somebody is trying to silence someone. So you throw a bunch of legal stuff in someone's way, hoping that they can't afford it, and that's the end of it. They be quiet. And unsurprisingly, all they really say here in Illuminati's new claim is that this is not a slap suit. So this doesn't stand because it's not a slap suit. Their reasoning for citing this is to do with other cases where there have been slap suits and it has to do with other things. But just because that's the way that it turned out in those cases doesn't mean that it makes sense here. Because if she was just throwing these things at them to make them be quiet, and you have to remember, she originally tried to get a restraining order, which meant that they wouldn't be able to talk about her online. She tried to get that against Oz Media and Wonderstruck. And if she had succeeded in that, they would have had to shut up. Now that restraining order didn't go through, and then the claims started. We have this beautiful bit where she goes back into her fan fiction. Here, Blair alleges and presented evidence that Oz Media hauled Blair into a public controversy about a private dispute to elicit sympathy from others and punish Blair for her choice to date someone else. Oz Media has failed to present evidence that proves that Illuminati are public figures within the scope of defendant's false accusation that Blair engaged in embezzlement. Multiple things to say here. Firstly, it's saying Oz Media has failed to present evidence that Illuminati is a public figure, yet Illuminati has failed to present evidence that this is all happening because Oz Media is annoyed that she's dating someone else, which has been brought up multiple times now. You'd think there'd be some kind of evidence for that, but no. But also, it's very important to state here that Oz Media did not accuse Illuminati of embezzlement. What he said was that she had told him that because she had loaned him money, that she could get in trouble legally. And he couldn't remember the word she used, but it was along the lines of embezzlement. Now, he did not say Blair committed embezzlement. He said that she told him that she could get in trouble. That's what he said. Completely different thing to accusing her of embezzlement. Conclusion. Wherefore, plaintiffs respectfully request this court to enter its order denying the defendant's motion to dismiss plaintiff's second amended complaint with certificate of conferral and for any other relief this court deems just and proper. The words claims and clams are both not here, so we can't have a good laugh. But we can laugh about the fan fiction, so good job on your story. Was lovely. Look, again, I'm not here to say that it's not true. It could be true, but I've not seen any evidence that makes me believe that it's true. So is Illuminati going to return to her channel? I don't know. And is she going to return through legal documents? I also don't know, because the judge might throw it out. If I was the judge, I would throw it out, but I'm not a judge. So there you go. Let me know what you thought about this in the comments, and you can also leave me a comment and let me know how your day is going. I would absolutely love to know. Please, if you haven't already, do subscribe. It really helps me out. I really appreciate if you do that. Thank you so much. You can also check out the Patreon memberships. I think I said that already. Probably did. I'm sorry. Social media, Evangeline Iskov, everywhere. And also, if there's anything that you want me to talk about in this channel or anything you want me to cover, you can leave that in the comments as well. I will consider it if I see your comment. I usually try to read a lot of my comments, so there's a good chance I'll see it, so let me know if there's anything you want. Like, comment, share, do all the things that I'm supposed to ask you to do at the end of the video, including remembering to check out Fume. You can go to tryfume.com/Evangelina or use code Evangelina to save 10% off your order. Thank you to Fume for sponsoring today's video, and big thank you to you for watching today's video. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and I will see you in the next one.
Let's get to Biden and Trump agreeing to participate in two, not one, but two presidential debates.
The first debate will be held in the battleground state of Georgia, but without an audience. And the other will be a primetime face-off held in a news studio. But the commission's 2020 debates drew criticism from all sides for being especially chaotic and contentious.
Will you shut up, man? Contentious as in Trump did almost execute Biden. Like, Trump did do an attempted assassination on Joe Biden, something that we forget about. He literally had COVID. He was sick. And he went up on that stage against an 800-year-old corpse, just like coughing in his direction and being like, hey, shake my hand. Come on. I mean, I'm exaggerating. I don't think he did that, but.
Listen, who is on your list, Joe? Who's on your list?
Right. Gentlemen, I think
this is so unprecedented.
Ed, I really didn't think this was going to happen. So what was it that brought both candidates together to say, yeah, we're on board?
Shake my hand, Brandon. If you're a real man, Joe Biden, you would shake my hand. ABC will allow simulcast. CNN won't. Bad form, CNN. Very bad form. ABC will share the debate with other broadcast and streaming news networks. The simulcast, CNN has said only that its debate will air on its own platforms. Classic. I saw that this was going on, and I had a statement about it. I said, I, for one, am excited to watch two 80-year-old men yap about a bunch of issues they almost completely align on with respect to policy while acting as though they're miles apart from one another. Aaron Rupar, liberalism's greatest soldier, actually hit me with a quote tweet and hit me where it hurts. He said, Trump supports stripping bodily autonomy from women. Biden does not. Trump supports taking healthcare away from tens of millions of people. Biden does not. Trump wants to round up migrants and put them in detention camps. Biden does not. Excuse me. That part's a little weird. Trump supports executing drug dealers. Biden does not. Trump wants to withdraw from NATO and form an alliance with Russia. Biden does not. I could go on. Is annoying ideology? If so, Rupar got that in spades. Some of the stuff that he's mentioning is just not even fair to bring up in this conversation, considering that it's ironic because there are aspects of the Biden administration that is demonstrably better. Bango Lives is correct. There are aspects of the Biden administration that is demonstrably better. It's ironic that he didn't mention them, though. Like, for example, not eviscerating federal agencies and actually utilizing them, which Biden has done. But these guys are so permanently warped in posturing against Trump brain. The problem with liberalism is that it is inherently reactionary. Maybe not as bad as like the actual Republican attitude, but overall liberalism is also inherently reactionary as an ideology, which is precisely the reason why they always talk about the boundaries of what they are not, what they are up against. But slowly but surely, the things that you are saying that you should be voting for Biden for get smaller and smaller and smaller in that time frame. He didn't even mention any of the good things that Biden has done, things that I will readily admit and routinely talk about, okay? In my tweet, I singled out immigration, Israel, Palestine, and tariffs. Those are the three key issues that Biden is 100% aligned with Trump on. And then I also mentioned one aspect that he's not aligned with Trump on, which is his most important key difference between him and Trump. Problem here is liberals don't even know how to advocate for the Democratic Party correctly. Liberals also don't personally understand how politics is supposed to work. Liberals only operate on lesser evil voting. People do not care about lesser evil voting. People do not think critically on many issues, and they especially don't think critically on lesser evil voting. If you consistently advocate on just how not as bad as the Republicans you are going to whittle away all of the people that would readily vote for you. I mean, didn't we do that last election? Yes, we did do that last election. And notice something I have personally stated time and time again is a key principle in why people vote a certain way, okay? Democrats have completely lost touch with the reality that you are supposed to offer something to people, not just simply engage in a defensive posture. You have to offer them something, and then you have to prove to the people that voted for you that it was a good idea to vote for you. Engaging in pure team sports to say like, no, it's better if it's a D instead of an R that's doing the same exact initiatives, then, you know, it feels like your team won, and then you can own the conservatives is not going to be good enough to actually win elections consistently. The Democratic Party's platform that they advocate for across the board, if we look at it holistically, is still significantly better than the Republican Party's platform. The issue is that the Democratic Party rarely ever follows through on their agenda, consistently loses and says, oh, well, it's because of the structural hurdles that were placed in front of us, a thing that no Republican has ever stopped themselves from advocating for, to a detriment, mind you, because Republican politics and Republican policy are both, I mean, Republican politics is good, but their policies are bad. And the Democratic Party's policies are supposed to be good, but their politics are supposed to be bad. Republicans never say, oh man, like Mitch McConnell never goes, oh dude, we have structural hurdles, that's why we can't allow Obama to appoint a Supreme Court justice. That's not something that stops them. They do their bidding for their most loyal constituencies, sometimes to a detriment to the continuation of the party. The Democratic Party is supposed to say, look, if you vote for us, we are not as bad as the Republican Party. We will scale back on the Republican Party's death and destruction. We will scale back on the deregulation. We will scale back on the environmental impact, the damaging impact on the environment as a consequence of deregulation and many other things. We will defend labor rights. We will defend workers. We will create better economic opportunities, upward social mobility for some of the least wealthy Americans, some of the poorest Americans, all that good stuff. We will protect immigrants. We will protect marginalized people, whether they're trans, black, brown, whatever, and also women's rights. We will protect women's reproductive rights specifically. These are the things broadly that the Democratic Party is advocating for as they position themselves as not the Republican Party. The Republican Party is advocating for the opposite things, right? However, back in the day, the idea was that if you voted for a Democrat, at least they would never champion the Republican Party's position on these issues. Nowadays, the Democratic Party doesn't even do the lip service. They just say, you vote for us, and that's it. And in that time frame, in that process, the things that they can point to get smaller and smaller and smaller as the daylight between the two parties and their policies actually reduce. In 2020, you could say, and the Democratic Party did, all of the brutalization that you're seeing from the police against free press, all the brutalization that you're seeing from the police, Trump's police, against protesters, we will never do that, as you can see clearly with what's going on with the pro-Palestinian demonstrations all around college campuses all around the United States of America. They're beating the shit out of students, they're beating the shit out of teachers, they're beating the shit out of even the press. Another thing that the Biden administration said, we are not going to be like the Trump administration with their child separation policy and their immigrant detentions. America is a nation founded on immigration. We are all descendants of immigrants. We are a wonderful nation. We can take care of all these people. We are going to do our very best to reverse Trump's policies on immigration. The Biden administration, on the other hand, continued Title 42. The Trump administration's only policy in combating COVID was Title 42, saying that the CDC thinks that these migrants might have COVID and therefore they can't come into the country in an effort to protect Americans from COVID while simultaneously denying COVID was real anyway. The Brandon administration continued that policy. The Brandon administration continued immigrant detention. The Brandon administration, 4 years after it ran a successful campaign, mind you, against the Trump administration, saying that they were going to reverse in the first 100 days all of the Trump administration's immigration policies, turned around and advocated the exact same bill that the Trump administration was trying to pass over and over again, funding the border. border wall, funding Customs and Border Patrol, and beefing up border security, assuming that the right-wing framing on the issue of immigration was actually not one of, economic, immigration has always been an economic issue. Still, falsehoods are presented in the conversation on the Republican front, and the Democrats are supposed to tackle it from the economic front and be like, no, they're not actually taking your jobs, yada, yada, yada. But they dropped that completely and took on right-wing framing, took on the framing that the Republicans were advancing, saying that, no, immigration is actually a matter of national security. Immigrants are violent. Immigrants are rapists. Immigrants are thieves. And what ended up happening is basically the same exact thing that you see all around the world. You see in Europe especially, right? That people are now more militant against immigrants than ever before. And the reason for that is because the Democratic Party has also given up on arguing on the real boundaries of this issue and arguing for real solutions to this problem. A problem that is born out of right-wing, white nativist, anti-immigrant sentiments. My point is, if you keep capitulating the right-wing framing on issues, you're going to lose that issue completely. Because why the would people believe you now that you've had an attitude shift when there are people that have been on the immigrants or rapists side with clarity, with moral clarity for quite some time? All you've now done is say, no, they're actually right. I'm handing it to the right wing. I'm the one who'll fix it, but the right won't let me fix it by being right wing. It is an idiotic bargain. Is both bad policy and also even worse politics. In my opinion, is completely unconscionable and also furthering the fascist agenda in this country. It is genuinely devastating. It is genuinely scary. And I cannot comprehend how any liberal doesn't see that reality, the writing on the wall. Chris Murphy. Today I'm reintroducing the bipartisan border security bill. It's not a bipartisan bill. It is a right-wing bill, by the way. It's only bipartisan because it's a right-wing bill that the Democrats are pushing for. It's insane to me that they're doing this again. Basketball analogy. If you're given the option between Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant, two players who overlap greatly, everyone's picking MJ. If you're racist, you want the MJ of racism law. Let's say you're like a chess grandmaster, okay? It's like being a chess grandmaster and saying, I want to play against LeBron in a dunk competition. It's like, what are you doing? You're gonna get owned. You know what I mean? There's no reason to go do a dunk competition. LeBron is going to destroy you. Play chess. It is very frustrating to see the Democratic Party do this over and over again, and only to have these people defend this silly notion. People do not vote on lesser evil voting boundaries. It is stupid. And the expectation that like you are owed their vote as the Democratic Party is also stupid. The expectation that you are owed their vote and not vice versa is inherently undemocratic. Why the do we have a democracy then? You have to fall in line and offer fealty to the Lord, to one lordship over the other? Okay, well, why do we have a democracy then? No, you're supposed to earn our vote, man. And union support and climate investment and agency regulations and judicial picks and protections for trans people and DACA protections and marijuana policy and student loan forgiveness and overtime regulations, cabinet picks and renewable interest. Exactly. That's why they voted in the first place. If you act out of line, you should be instantly ousted. I don't even personally disagree with Hutch Hutchinson on this issue. On some. A lot of this is just like a laundry list of things that he wishes the Democratic Party was doing, but there are some that the Democratic Party is like genuinely taking the initiative on, right? Union protections being one of them. It's true. You're wrong if you don't think that the NLRB is not doing a good job. The issue here is still the idea that people are supposed to come to these conclusions on their own when the Democratic Party is not showing them that they're doing that. Even if the Joe Biden administration was legitimately making great initiatives on half of the things that he's talking about here, which, half of them are not real, it is wild to me that they are doing such a bad job with their messaging. They have had zero policy papers on their website, on their campaign website. And I don't even know if they've changed that reality. Like a couple months back, they still had no policies on their website. Now, obviously, many people are not going to go there and read that anyway. It's not going to move the needle. But it's good for people like Hutch and all those other people who want to dick ride the Democratic Party into oblivion to have the talking points. And the fact that they are not even offering talking points to their own loyal Fedayeen is insane to me. It shows me that they are not interested in winning. It is crazy, by the way. The latest New York Times Siena poll showed that Biden is doing horrifyingly bad, losing a 12-point lead in Nevada, Pennsylvania, Arizona, Georgia, all these states where he's supposed to be dominating, with the exception of Wisconsin, is crazy. It's just so incredibly cooked. And so many of the Democratic Party loyal demographics are literally just not voting for Biden. Like all of those states that we're looking at, Latino voters, a key constituency. The states that we're looking at where young voters are an important constituency, even though they don't vote in like massive numbers, it's still an important constituency for the winning constituency that the Democratic Party has to create in order to defeat the Republicans. Biden is basically running on Trump is worse aesthetically and worse for democracy.
Biden's ahead by 4 points nationally. 4 points nationally. Not even an article about it.
National political reporter at The Bulwark, Mark Caputo, also calls the Nevada poll, quote, a total outlier. Meanwhile, the director of polling at Harvard's Institute of Politics, John Delavolpe.
They're doing 2016 again. It's the only method that they have. It's the only thing they know how to do. It relies on the understanding that the Democratic Party is entitled to your vote, okay? You have to vote for them. They are entitled to your vote. It is inherently undemocratic, and it is pretty crazy. It's not just public spin. Biden doesn't believe his bad poll numbers, nor do many of his top aides. Bro, this is literally Trump. Trump did these exact same per Dems who has spoken privately with the president and his team. This informs the largely steady as she goes campaign strategy. Some Democrats think the Biden team, by the way, this is Alex Thompson, the national political correspondent at Axios. So I'm not just reading a random Twitter thread for those of you who get hyper-focused on the aesthetics. I'm talking about a journalist breaking his own story on Twitter. Democrats think the Biden team is in denial about the polling and sleepwalking into defeat. The Biden team is convinced the country will not re-elect Trump once they face the choice in November. Ultimately, voters will decide which side is right. In public and private, Biden has been telling anyone who will listen that he's gaining ground and is probably up on Donald Trump in their rematch from 2020. While the press doesn't write about it, the momentum is clear in our favor, with the polls moving towards us and away from Trump, Biden told donors during a West Coast swing last week. Reality check, some national polls have shown Biden ahead or tied, and in several other polls, the president is within the survey's margins for error. Many aspects of Trump's candidacy, including his legal battles, are unprecedented and add more mystery to the election projections. Biden has been under 40% for 8 months straight. No president has ever won the election after registering under 40% approval in an election year, according to 538's approval. These are unprecedented times because no incumbent president has ever run against a former president that is in legal trouble for the horrifyingly bad, corrupt, awful job that he did in the past 4 years that he was president in. So that's the reason why it's not as black and white as you think it is. It is unprecedented. My point is, you shouldn't have to rely on that if you're the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party is doing fairly well across the board, with the exception for Biden. Can you imagine a world in which, like, the Democratic Party wins the Senate and the House but lose the presidency? Because it would be ridiculous. But, you know, we're kind of staring at a reality like that right now, unless we get even more Democrats to lose their goddamn seats due to corruption investigations. It is ridiculous. The one thing that unseats some of the worst, most right-wing Democrats in this country is their endless thirst for gold bullions from the Egyptian government or securing side deals with the Azerbaijan government. It's freakish the way we are operating in the Democratic Party. Like, comical. Remember how GE polls were the reason we had to vote for Biden because he had an average of 1% more popular vote lead than Bernie? Now polls don't matter at all. Yes. Insane splits here. In 2024 presidential election were held today. Who would you vote for if the candidates were Joe Biden and Donald Trump? Wisconsin, 47% Joe Biden, 45% Trump. Pennsylvania, 47% Trump. Arizona, 49% Trump, 42 Biden. Michigan, 49% Trump, 42 Biden. Georgia, 49% Trump, 39 Biden. Nevada, 50% Trump, 38% Biden. It's so crazy to think that 4 years prior, I think, if I'm not mistaken, Biden literally had a 12-point lead in Nevada. No? The New York Times, Philadelphia Inquirer, Siena College poll, April 28th to May 9th. If this general election for U.S. Senate were held today, which candidate would you be more likely to vote for? Jackie Rosen, 40%. Arizona, 45%. Ruben Gallego. Bob Casey, 46%. Tammy Baldwin in Wisconsin, 49%. This is precisely what I'm talking about when I say the Democratic Party is doing unimaginably good in comparison to the awful performance demonstrated by the top of the ticket. They're doing this in spite of the top of the ticket, mind you. Think about how crazy that is. How does nobody recognize that this spells doom for how personally unpopular the president is? Is Biden cooking or getting cooked? Biden is losing in every state that was polled, and every single senator in that state is winning. Every single Democratic senator is winning in all of those states, with the exception of one. Biden is losing by massive margins too. New Times Siena poll. Voters picked Trump over Biden in handling the Israel-Gaza-Hamas thicket by a wide margin, as observed below. The number of Biden voters abandoning him from the left is a fly speck. Voters punish treachery. This is not just Israel, it's Abby Yates. Split A, the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. 50%. Donald Trump would be better. Do you want to know why? Because Donald Trump is at least consistently bad on Israel from our perspective. Joe Biden, on the other hand, with his like weird like, oh, well, Israel has a right to defend itself and we're going to bear hug them, while simultaneously like, oh, we have to do the right thing and like maybe dial it back a little bit, is losing everyone. The other reason is, of course, because Donald Trump is not the president. People are stupid as they don't think about these issues deeply. They literally go, well, Biden is the one doing genocide. Maybe Trump will be different. I can yell about that every day of the week and how wrong that is, but that's not going to move the needle. What will move the needle, however, is Biden taking a strong stance in the right direction. That's the issue. Instead, he's doing the worst of both worlds. He's flip-flopping on it, and more importantly, showing everyone his major weakness, which is that he's old and demented and falling asleep on the wheel. It's really bad. It's really, really, really bad.
I don't believe the polls.
There you go. His poll shows approval rating is at 33%. Joe Biden says, I don't believe the polls. So frustrating, dude. Trump would bomb Gaza way harder. Donald Trump is obviously more responsible, I would say, for October 7th than Joe Brandon is. Even though October 7th happened while Joe Brandon was the president, Donald Trump's actions are the major turning point for why October 7th happened. Okay? I've talked about this in detail a million times over. Anyway, let's continue.
Vote by 27 points in Michigan, while winning it by 24 points in Wisconsin.
A million monkeys with a million
I think there are a lot of
cell phones
here.
making calls as pollsters. Okay. That's how you do it.
Finally, the New Republic's Greg Sargent expressed dismay at the survey's methodology. This is important, which shows 20% of the likely voters polled either didn't vote in the last two midterms.
Wait a second. Wait a second.
Vote.
They're likely voters?
But they did not vote.
The 20% of what the New York Times is calling likely voters?
So let me finish.
Didn't vote in the last general election?
Damn, bro, these guys are really going ham on the polls now that it doesn't favor Biden. It almost feels like they didn't really care about polls ever and only cared about it as long as they could make an argument against Bernie Sanders, huh? Polls don't matter now. Why are you looking at polls? Don't look at polls.
Are you feeling something?
Well, I'm feeling that there's I think sometimes, as a general matter, there's maybe a little bit of an over-reliance on voters telling the truth about things in general. Hate to say it. Reporters find this occasionally that reporters lie. Here's what I'd say about this poll. If I were to ask you this question, Jeff.
That's crazy. I mean, this argument can be launched against every single time anyone has ever polled. So just throw every poll away. Polls are not an accurate way to predict what the election outcome will look like. They are an accurate snapshot of how the people feel, or the closest to reality as to how people feel. The idea that like polls don't matter only comes into play when you either have an ideological interest in your candidate winning, and I readily admit that, where I tell you like I don't care about how like polling looks like on Medicare for all. I still think it's a good thing, right? Like we are oftentimes fortunate that polls actually favor Medicare for all, but regardless, like on the Israel stuff, right? On Israel-Palestine, I don't give a what the polls say. They favor my position, but it doesn't matter. Even if it didn't, I would still be advocating for it because I'm not invested in simply one side winning. I am invested in, doing the right things, getting the government to do the right things, to apply pressure. But I'm not a liberal, and that's part of the reason why, because liberals operate on what they assume the center is, right? They constantly means testing, endlessly focus group testing to try to dance on the boundaries of what is accepted by the broadest subsect of voters, and that's how you arrive at the ratchet effect that I was describing earlier. But it is pretty funny when you consider how they are reacting to bad polls here. Thank you. Central Committee says, here's how he acted when that poll looked good for Biden in 2019.
They're trying to figure out whether Biden is going to make it to South Carolina if he finishes in fourth in Iowa and New Hampshire. The question is, will Joe Biden ever be given an opportunity to show where his strength lies?
Yeah, well, Joe, that's the big question here. And we know that in a lot of states, there are still voters who are undecided, still a significant number of voters who are undecided. But
it's just interesting. They're not talking about how bad. I mean, they're not talking about how Polls are here.
I'll keep going back to a thing that I try to say every time we talk about these things, which is that I'm really interested, and I know you know this, is like, what are the polls telling us directionally about the race?
I understand. There's a difference, though, with the New York Times Siena poll, and you know this. It's given disproportionate.
He's trying to do the Biden campaign's line as well, which is that, like, the momentum is favoring Biden, which is still cope. And Joe's like, no, I don't even want you to say that. I just want you to say it's bad. It's a bad poll because the poll sucks and Biden is doing great.
No, it's not. There's one poll that's wildly skewed every time. Okay. And it does shape, if it's a New York Times poll versus a morning.
Yeah, dude, we need the Brandon campaign to actually investigate the New York Times. Maybe they are Hamas. It seems like they're actively doing election interference. Mr. Brandon, sir, now that we know that Morning Joe is viewed by, in a way that is not dissimilar to Donald Trump, viewed by one person and one person only, the most important audience member, that MSNBC's Morning Joe is is the exact same equivalent. Fox and Friends had one very important viewer, Donald Trump. Morning Joe has one very important viewer, Joseph Robinette Brandon.
Yes. Joe, you're saying something more than that, though. You're saying the New York Times is systematically putting these polls out in a way to try to amplify them to drive the news cycle.
Yes. I am saying that.
And I'm not.
This dude is actually repeating the Joe Biden communication, which is the momentum is favoring the Brandon campaign. Don't just look at this poll. Look at all the prior polls and look at where Brandon is now. He's gaining momentum. That's a good thing overall. Polls are still reliable. Joe has lost his mind and is like, no, dude, polls are actually communist and Hamas. Like, just agree with him, jackass. He's trying to save your credibility.
Quoting people who said they're switching their vote from Joe Biden, who have never voted before. I'm sorry. The New York Times has to know what they're doing.
That's awesome.
Doesn't really take any time to write any scripts out, so he's just like filling the airtime with shit just to hear himself talk, so he can get the video to, what is it? Yeah, just past the ad revenue and algorithm point. But it's racism. I'm gonna have a little spoiler for everybody here. It's racism. Screw it on YouTube asking, wasn't there a Netflix anime recently about a real life black samurai? Same samurai. Yeah, here's the really interesting thing with Yasuke, is that Yasuke is a very famous, like, cool pulp character because it's a cool thing that happened in history that, like, hey, there was an African dude who became a samurai, like a black guy who became a samurai. That's neat. Assassin's Creed, I would say a series that has a playful relationship with reality and historical accuracy, but likes to it uses history as a playground, right? So them using Yasuke as a main character is completely expected. That is completely in line with everything else the series has ever done, like, at all. The only reason somebody would have a problem with it is because they don't want a black person in their game. The fascinating thing about this Assassin's Creed scandal, and I use the word scandal very loosely, but the fascinating thing about it has been watching a quote-unquote culture war, a controversy bloom from inception. Because as soon as the trailer dropped, and we'll go into this today, people like Grumps had a narrative ready. In the first day, I went through and actually counted it. Grumps tweeted 30 times, sharing unsubstantiated reports that the game had been changed behind the scenes to his audience of 160,000 or something. And make no mistake, the reason he's doing that is to keep farming engagement off of it, because he knows it's hot. Like, he could have said everything he wanted to say with one tweet. He did it 30 times between tweets and retweets. And you'll notice, like we were just watching Rev Says Desu, like I have the quartering pulled up, like we have Some Ordinary Gamers, everybody is jumping on this controversy. But here's the interesting thing, because I was thinking about this earlier today. You know what controversy went away really quick? And I say, again, controversy, not an actual controversy, because I myself, I barely kind of wanted to cover this, except it is such a good example of how they manufacture these controversies, on how they basically keep people distracted with the shit that doesn't matter, and how they themselves, through their actions, will kind of cop to how this shit doesn't matter. When X-Men 97 first came out, 3 months ago, ruined by Disney wokeness, 3 months ago, confirmed woke trash from the quartering. Disney destroys beloved X-Men 97. When something they think is going to be woke comes out, and qualitatively it's good and everybody likes it, and they can't blame wokeness for the quality, and they understand, oh shit, everybody likes this. You'll notice a lot of these videos are over a month old. Now, I bring that up because it plays into this idea that we're seeing start with Assassin's Creed Shadows. We are seeing this phase happen right now, where we will get a whole bunch of people talking about how they've ruined it, they've made it woke. Now, what's the utility of that for these folks? If you find yourself wondering, why would this group of people spend so much time and energy just talking about random incidental culture war things, making big deals out of essentially nothing? Go and just, as a refresher course, go and look at the Quartering's output. This is everything I never want to be. Because he puts out, just today, he's put out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, about 6 videos. And y'all know you'll be lucky to get one, even a stream highlight from me, which is essentially what he does, by the way. He just puts up unedited content. But this is the template. This is the blueprint. Even for people like Groans, even if they don't have a YouTube channel, if they are in this space, this kind of vaguely right-wing space, I won't call it fully right-wing, because even though they're anti-woke, a lot of them will call themselves centrist or liberals, or they'll say, oh, you know, I believe trans people should have rights. So I don't want to ascribe to them something that isn't true. But in this space, this anti-woke space, you will notice that they will latch on to just about goddamn anything. And that's important to remember as you see all of these people jumping on the Assassin's Creed Shadows bandwagon. Not because it's actually an important cultural battle to be fought and won, but because they know if they can sell the outrage until the game comes out. When does the game come out? Come out in November, I think? November 15th. That is a meal ticket right there. If they can jump on that bandwagon now, that is just one of the many, many narratives that they get to ride until November 15th. And here's the real thing, because I was just talking about X-Men 97 coming out, right? And it was so good that they had to drop the narrative around it. Nobody is talking about how woke it is and it's woke and broke, because people like it. It's a good show. I still need to watch it, but every time a new episode drops, I see my feed blowing up like it's goddamn Game of Thrones, which is never what I expected from a successor to the 90s X-Men series. Like, I'm excited to sit down and watch the whole thing. I just like to watch the whole thing at once. And the thing with something like Assassin's Creed Shadows is that it kind of doesn't matter how the game is going to be. I really like the last couple of Assassin's Creed games. I still think they're probably like a 7, maybe an 8 on a good day, you know? Like, I played the hell out of Odyssey. I like Valhalla. I didn't finish it. But I'm down for a new Assassin's Creed. It's been a minute since I played one. Honestly, though, knowing Ubisoft, the game will probably be just okay. Like, most Ubisoft games are just okay. That doesn't actually matter in the grand scheme of the narrative, though. Because either the game will come out, and if it's not a buggy, like, Unity level mess, Assassin's Creed Unity level mess, it's going to be forgotten about in this narrative, in this kind of anti-woke grifting ecosystem. It's going to be completely forgotten about, because by then they'll already have 3 other meal tickets to latch onto. They'll have 3 other I guarantee there will be some kind of reboot that's announced that has a female cast member, or a new animated series that has a black person in it, or something that gets a gay character, and they will freak out about that and just continue making this shit over it. Let's go back to, I guess, let's see what Rev Says Desu has to say. while we're here, and then we'll go over to the quarter pounder real quick, because I want to let, I guess, the people who believe these are real problems speak for them in their own words.
And let's begin with the most talked about point, and is the choice of the main characters. Now, there are two main characters, and remember, as stated right here, this takes place in feudal Japan, and yet the main characters are a woman and a black man. That just seems like a very odd thing for a setting in feudal Japan. A lot of people are expecting, at the very least, a Japanese set of main characters, but that's not what they got. Instead, they got the character based on a real person called Yasuke, okay? So looking into this character, we've seen other people try to raise whataboutisms, saying when Shogun came out, they're asking, where is Yasuke, the first Japanese samurai? And people, of course, were getting their historical timelines wrong in that case.
Yasuke was not... See, Rev, this is what happens, buddy, when you don't write down what the fuck you're saying. You say things like, Yasuke was the first Japanese samurai. Just, this is what happens when you're off the cuff. Yeah, it's Yasuke, right? Not Yasuke. Yasuke. I'm pretty sure. I tried. Yasuke. Yeah, I'm also... Like, again, far be it from me to criticize production values of other people, but like, bro, you're the anime tuber. Like, you have anime on your profile. You got a VTuber and everything, and you're like, while there's been a massive outcry about Yasuke, there wasn't the same outcry about the Netflix show that happened just a couple years ago, or when Yasuke was in Samurai Warriors, a series set in feudal Japan. They didn't seem to be too terribly mad. Remember the game Nioh, another game set in feudal Japan, starring a samurai who, in the first Nioh, the samurai was a British dude, a white dude in Japan. Interesting. They didn't have a problem with it then. This is a little old. This one's for the old heads. But do you think they would have a problem with Afro Samurai? Do you think they would say, "Oh, Afro Samurai is racist"? Because it's depicting a. Although Afro Samurai is more of like a futuristic kind of vibe. It's not really feudal Japan, but kind of, but not really. But do you think they would have the same problem? I feel like they might not. Because again, remember when we were talking about just a second ago, when something becomes good, when it comes out and it's good and it gets accepted into canon generally as like, oh yeah, that's a good piece of media. That's what these things already are. That's why you don't see people bringing them up in arguments to support their point. Because we know that stories about foreigners as samurai, games about people who aren't Japanese being samurai, can not only be good, but be popular. We know this. But as Synth Potato here brings up, the thing is that everybody has been going back on the idea, they've been making, as they are wont to do, incredibly pedantic arguments like Yasuke not being a samurai. And here's the thing. At a certain point, if you have to resort to that kind of pedantry for historical accuracy's sake, quote unquote, they want to say they're defending historical accuracy. Again, where were they for the rest of the Assassin's Creed series? Where were they when you were finding magical artifacts in Egypt or under the fucking in the center of the earth doing virtual reality Elysium shit at the end of Odyssey? Like, where were they when you were going to Valhalla and fighting demons? Where were they when you were fist fighting the Pope? I think what this shows, if there's something that the Assassin's Creed Shadow, if you can, again, I don't even want to call it controversy because it's all so forced. Like, all of it is so forced from top to bottom. Like, at any point somebody has about this, they say it's forced diversity. Okay, well, no, it was based on a real person. They say it's not accurate to history. Okay, well, yeah, Assassin's Creed never has been. It's historical tourism. It's meant to be fun and goofy and pulpy. They say, okay, well, it's forcing DEI in Japanese stories and it should center Japanese characters. As if we don't have any samurai games starring Japanese characters, but also as if we don't have a history of samurai games starring this particular character, Yasuke. Games, anime, movies. So all you're left with are hollow arguments by people like Grumps, by people like the Quartering.
Ah, the samurai. Many of you remember them prominently featured in the Black Panther Wakanda Forever. Wait, was it?
Already, we have him just padding time for his you'll notice also, again, all of his videos kind of just edge just right around the 11 to 12 minute mark.
Now, what was that samurai show? Family Matters? No, that wasn't Samurais. Fresh Prince of Bel-Air? I love Fresh Prince. I don't think those were samurai. Well, according to Ubisoft, which has made the new Assassin's Creed game, they were in fact black. And even the black community, gotta give a shout out here, is roasting them for it. Assassin's Creed is a game that has basically gotten worse with every...
Also, very funny that, like, the Quartering most certainly has not played an Assassin's Creed game in years and years. I can almost guarantee it.
New iteration of it, but is generally worth a clearance sale purchase of $5 to $10 because it did pioneer a lot of mechanics. It's been a very interesting game over the years. For those who don't know, you basically obviously play an assassin in the game, and for all the years, for all the games, you've played kind of as a different ethnicity. For example, when you played in Italy, you played as an Italian man. France, you played as a Frenchman. America, of course, you played as a Native American, not a white guy. In Greece, Greek man,
It's also not true. You play as a half-white, native-born, indigenous person. Also, famously, one of the most popular, too. I really like Rogue a little bit more than Black Flag, but Black Flag you play as a Welshman. And in Rogue, you play as an Irishman. In the Caribbean. So, also in Assassin's Creed Freedom Cry, you play as Adewale. Also in Assassin's Creed Liberation, you play as fucking what's her name? Who was also Cajun. She was half Creole. I don't remember the exact, but she was also mixed. So already that's like 5 games that he's wrong about off the bat. Good stuff, buddy.
Interesting. They have all sorts of, I think the Arab character, or whatever the, I don't know. That's just a meme going around. I'm not totally sure about Ubisoft, but I think, the whole thing is weird. The whole thing is so weird to me. And you see, I'm here in the next Assassin's Creed.
I'm so glad. Again, this is why I don't watch much of the Quartering stuff, because there is no thought or effort put into any of it. He has spent like 20 seconds of this just being empty airtime as he's just going, oh, it's so weird. Oh, this is so weird to me. Like, I don't quite get it. It might be a meme. It's incredibly frustrating.
Your game is going to be set in Japan and have a black man as the main protagonist, Yosuke. Social media is about to get all social media all over itself. Well, first of all, Yosuke was not a samurai. He was more like a squire in the samurai.
We got another pronunciation of Yasuke. I'm gonna end up saying it fucked up by the end of this. Yosuke. Fucking what? These are the guys who are supposed to be like, oh, they're standing up, they're defending Japanese culture, and they want everything to be proper. It's like, man, what the?
People have brought up again. I want to give all the credit here. As a white guy, let me give Kaida Khalil Too Short on Twitter. Let me give him the credit here. Listen to this.
So we got our first look at the new Assassin's Creed game, and I gotta say, man, I'm not impressed. I'm actually just really annoyed right now. You have two main protagonists, one female, one male, just like Odyssey. We're gonna be using Neo. I hope I said that right. A female Japanese character. And for the male character, they're gonna be using Yasuke. Now, I'm annoyed because they're using Yasuke, and I'm gonna tell you why. Yasuke is what they want to say is the first black Japanese samurai, when in all actuality, he was not even a samurai.
True.
He was a retainer. So
that's
a full-blown samurai. And for all of...
So again, I love how the quartering is just like, he's like, yeah, that's true. That's right. When he clearly didn't even know the terminology and is just trying to regurgitate something he looked at for half a second on Twitter, like most of these folks. Continue.
The characters they could have used for Japan, all these kind of different people they could have picked from. They picked Yasuke. Why do they pick Yasuke? Because he's black.
You know what's hilarious too? Part of those Assassin's Creed games, I think I only played maybe 2 of them. But
Oh! No! Losing A. Hostile sentry turret active.
I'm gonna fill my water real quick. I'll be right back.
Taking Charlie.
So, I don't care if somebody doesn't play Assassin's Creed. Like, I've enjoyed most of the games over the years. I really like the RPG style of the more recent ones. I have a lot of nostalgia for the roof jumping style of the ones before that. Like, I think they are, at worst, they are almost always enjoyable games and stories, and the characters and everything vary. I like Assassin's Creed. I don't love it. I'll pick one out. That being said, if you're gonna have a video where you start off talking about Assassin's Creed like you know shit, and then you say a couple minutes in, I've played 2 of them.
We lost C.
Like, he just gives up the grift so easily. Jeremy is so fucking bad at this.
Losing Alpha.
How I do not know how
Hostile care package inbound.
he doesn't have just better, like,
Charlie locked down. We lost Alpha.
the knowledge about the optics of how this makes him look. Not that he needs to. Again, not that he needs to, because people will just suck this shit up. The crowd that wants to be angry about this will just suck it up. Yeah, no, somebody else just pointed out in the chat, he's padding his video with another video. Was that on YouTube? Yeah, I think somebody on YouTube said it. Like, this is really a perfect illustration. This video in particular is a perfect illustration of how they grift. Like, he is relying on other people's content to help pad out his links so he can get ads and revenue and all that shit. He doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about. He can't even pronounce Yasuke correctly. He can't even, like, he doesn't know the difference between a retainer and what a squire is what he said. Like, dude, what are you busy doing all day? Like, I know it's not putting time and effort into your fucking content.
Well, I remember one of the mechanics was like doing something and then like sneaking away in the crowd. It's gonna be kind of hard to see Black Samurai do something stealthily in Japan.
So in context, that doesn't matter to me. Because in all the Assassin's Creed games, every single character has been of some kind of different race and nationality. So that doesn't matter to me. That's fine. But you have to understand what day and age we're in. You have to understand the kind of social shit that they want us to get across in these video games now. So instead of using a Japanese man in a game based in Japan, like they did with the other Assassin's Creed games, Altair, he was an Arab, obviously.
So again, we already talked about how there have been several characters like this. What was the name of the Aveline du Grand Pré? Afro-French assassin. That was 2 people who weren't born in America. And did all the same shit that every other Assassin's Creed character did.
Okay, Eric.
My favorite's Connor in Assassin's Creed 3. He was Native American. That was fine. And the most famous of them all, Ezio Auditore, who was Italian. So why in all those games would you have a character representative of the region they're from? But in this game, you want to...
Again, like we literally just saw with Evelyn, with, not Connor, but what's his name? Edward from Black Flag, with Adewale. All these characters that nobody else had a fucking problem with.
promote a Japanese man and then use Yasuke. I understand why. We know why. But they're not going to tell you why because we call it out. You're not an Astor-phobe or
Sorry, dude. I'm using you as a shield, and I apologize. I hope that I send you some new followers because you seem really based. But I literally couldn't say it better than this, and it just hits different coming from a black guy. Sorry. I mean, out of context. You can't, anyway, I mean, the points matter more.
whatever. And since I'm black,
The points matter more. I'm gonna say that's pretty racist.
We lost C.
I'm gonna say that's pretty racist. Like, it is literally something he wouldn't do. He wouldn't be saying if the guy wasn't black. He wouldn't be showing this video if the guy wasn't black. So, by Jeremy's logic, this is either him doing DEI or it's him being racist. I'll let him decide, I guess. Yeah, he's literally doing identity politics. Yeah, Patrick Doom, the quartering is literally tokenizing him. Shocked. I'm shocked.
and I'm calling it out, that means I must hate my skin or something. You know how they do. I just see this and my immediate thought is they did this for brownie points. I can't think of any other reason why you would have a Assassin's Creed game based in Japan, which we've been clamoring for since the beginning of Assassin's Creed, and then have the main protagonist that is a male be black. I see that and I'm like, there's no other reason than I want claps for it. There's no other reason. Point. That's like if Ghost of Tsushima, instead of using Jin, they use a white dude. People would be like, that doesn't make any sense. This doesn't make any sense to me. It's stupid.
Yeah, I love that example. Like he was talking about, or like we were talking about earlier. If Ghost of Tsushima, instead of Jin, they used a white dude. Again, might I point you towards William in Nioh, a game made by a Japanese dev team and put out by a Japanese publisher. But hold on, that goes against the narrative. We're not talking about those things. That game's good. People already like it. We can't cause a fuss about that. It would make us look like idiots if we tried to revise history. Why try and do that when we can just keep the hate train rolling and try and make some bucks before Assassin's Creed Shadows comes out? However, you will notice if you go on Twitter, there are plenty of black people who think this is cool. I think I liked a tweet. I haven't been on Twitter very much, but I was scrolling for a bit earlier when I was dropping the stream announcement, and I saw a black, he was a podcaster, and I ended up throwing him a follow because he was getting hate for literally saying that he was gonna buy it day one. Like he just saw the announcement, quote tweeted it saying he was gonna buy it day one because he was excited for it. And got, oh, actually, you know what? I got it. I actually have it. Yeah, so Persona Speaks, at Persona Speaks, he just responded day one. And this is the response from people. Of course, the black guy wants to buy a game his skin color is destroying.
Hostile sentry turret active.
Here's another response he posted, which is, I cannot express enough, just blatant open racism. Now, we don't have time to go into how Elon Musk specifically continues to enable this shit to just fester and grow unabated. But consider for a moment, and I would ask this man, I didn't remember his name, I would ask him to consider that the people he's going out of his way to agree with, the people like the quartering, who are hoisting him on their shoulders to say, look, this black man agrees with us. This is the kind of shit that their communities allow. That they allow to fester. The attitudes that are constantly running on the undercurrent of movements like this Gamergate one.
What else can you say? I mean, it's so like
what else can you say? This thing I barely had a fucking opinion on. This thing that I had to rely on somebody else entirely to form my opinion on. I don't know, Jeremy, what else can you say? Can you say anything actually? Jesus.
Obvious that I don't really know what did Ubisoft mean by this. The West's disdain for the Japanese and increasingly Koreans and Chinese. It's quite something to see in real time.
Oh my God. This is another thing I've actually been meaning to talk about, is how we saw, like, again, as with every other aspect of this, you can see the goalposts shift in real time. Just like when Stellar Blade came out, they were like, oh, all the journalists are going to get triggered over it. Nobody was triggered. It got good scores. As soon as it came out, they had to fucking find something else to make the culture war about. Like, they have to constantly shift the goalposts to maintain their relevancy. One undercurrent of Stellar Blade, and I talked about it in a little bit in the video, was people trying to make an argument that because Eastern games sometimes have sexier characters than Western games, if people disagree with that, they're basically being racist. Like, there is a concerted racist movement against Eastern game developers, which is like, what the fuck do you even say to that? When people are talking about how, oh, you're just racist against, like, because there's a double standard of sexuality in games, you're just racist against Korean developers or Japanese developers, and it's like, no? What? However, these same dorks just got done shitting a chicken about Hades 2, and among the things they were mad about was that Hermes' new art is more explicitly Asian, which, by the way, Hermes was literally always Asian. I spent like 20 hours last week playing the first Hades. Hermes has always been Asian. But they were mad about that because it was representation and inclusion. But now we see, again, for this specific case, they are mad that it's racist against Japan. The disdain for the Japanese. And here we have a forum post. Game set in Italy plays Italian man. Game set in France plays Frenchman. Game set in America plays Native American man. Game set in Greek plays a Greek man. Game set in Norway plays a Norseman. Game set in Japan. Why don't you talk about the other, like, 2 games set in America, 3 games set in America. If you count Black Flag, you're in the Caribbean for that. But you play as Welsh, Irish, Afro-French.
Team deathmatch.
Kind of missed those. Those are 3 big ones. 2 of those were mainline games. One of those was a handheld spin-off. Why don't you talk about Adewale in the Black Flag DLC? I don't know. It's not like there's precedent for this shit happening before. Guess not.
Expect hostile
So much for all those stop Asian hate virtue signals. Well, Andromeda, it's less that I'm saying they don't see Irish or Welsh as white, and more that it still goes against their narrative of, like, okay, by their logic, those characters should have been in Ireland.
Hostile removed.
Those characters should have been under the British Empire, not in the American colonies. It's so annoying to have to see these things, this cycle, begin again every couple of weeks. Like every couple of weeks, like clockwork. And I understand everybody needs to have their hot take. I have actually enjoyed, for the most part, not having to participate this one on Twitter. I'm gonna be real. It is liberating to just look at a story and be like, you know what? I actually don't care, because it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter to me that tens of thousands of people on the internet are so terminally online brained that they cannot just accept a game coming out without having to find something to get mad at it about. Like,
They're dead.
I don't care anymore, because it's going to keep happening. These people are going to find another thing to latch onto after this in a week or 2. They're going to keep bringing it back up. And you'll notice, if, like I was talking about at the beginning, if the game ends up being bad, it will become canonized to them, by the way. It will be held up as an example of, oh, this is what Sweet Baby Inc. does. This is what consulting and DEI, see, you shoved a black protagonist in a game, and that's why the game is bad, instead of anything else. Just like we saw it happen with Suicide Squad. Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League is a perfect example of the inverse of what we were talking about earlier with X-Men 97, where at its core, it is a not good product. Like, There is so much wrong with it at a conceptual level. And based on the fact that it was in development hell for a long time, I'm assuming that's kind of always been the case. Like, you can look at the industry around Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League and realize how it came into existence. From Warner spending the last decade pumping their games full of fucking microtransactions. I say this as a Mortal Kombat fan. Like, if you're a fan of Mortal Kombat, you've seen it firsthand, how they've pumped it up. But it's not that. It can't come down to things like that. It can't come down to the dwindling, ever dwindling live service game market. Oh, no, no, no. It's because you play as Harley Quinn and she kills Batman. And that was woke. And there's a rainbow flag, so that was woke. So now, to these folks, games like that have become canonized in a very real sense. As the proof positive that going woke makes you broke. But if Suicide Squad, like, let's imagine an alternate universe, a multiverse, if you will, of Suicide Squad came out and it was great, Game of the Year contender. Just like X-Men 97 would have faded into the ether. We would never have fucking heard about it again. It could have been the most woke game in the world. Like, it could have featured trans Ivy and Harley fucking on top of Batman's corpse. And if it got all Game of the Year awards and everybody loved it and everybody was playing it and it was like the next Destiny, these clowns wouldn't have given a shit anymore. Because it wouldn't have suited their narrative. The narrative that they need to keep alive, the narrative that we're gonna keep seeing with Assassin's Creed Shadows. Yeah, Renderer 96. God forbid a game isn't just not good. Like it is. Yeah, it's and on another level, that's actually a really good point because it is disheartening to see what this does to the idea of criticism and critique. Much like where we were talking about a little bit earlier with turning off your brain and escapism and all that stuff. It's just disheartening to see so many people not even try and understand or not even understand why things aren't good. And I feel like this approach to criticism has unfortunately been baked into the internet, and unfortunately it's been, I feel like it's something that people like me and people like, you know, people I know have been imbibing for, you know, decades at this point, where you like the thing you like and you hear from a friend or you hear from somebody else that like, oh no, that game is trash. And that becomes the narrative for you. You're like, oh, okay, I trust this person's opinion. I guess the game is trash. And like, that is the way people have been conducting critique and criticism. Not entirely, obviously. There's video essayists, there's reviewers, there's other ways to get that criticism. But I feel like this approach is an extension of that. Yeah, Evil Nala, that's a good way to look at, right? Like how they claim every mass shooting is done by a trans person, and when they learn it ain't, they don't want to talk about the shooting being Christian. Yeah, that, oh God, I hate, that might be one of the worst things that TERFs share around, honestly. Because there is a copy pasta, like, shitty thing that goes around Twitter every day of like, oh, see the connection between all of these shooters, and like half of them weren't even trans, and half of them like basically made it up so that they could, it was the one, I think it was the Club Q shooter who was like, basically it came out, the lawyers basically admitted that he said he was non-binary to cause controversy, to just stir shit up. But like, you can't argue with people. Like, honestly, you can't argue with people like that. They do not want to argue. They just want to piss you off. Yeah, Ophelia, it doesn't help that scoring is fucked and a 7 out of 10 is considered a bad game since the industry got scared of scoring low, so the score means nothing. Yeah, I mean, that is a multi-tiered issue, because I feel like the problem with scoring in games is, like, and I say this as somebody who, you know, like, I'm still on a, like, relatively tight budget. I cannot buy every game that comes out. I'm a little bit better than I was, but like, especially when I was like poor and I couldn't afford any games, if there was a game that came out, I needed to make sure that shit was a 10. If I was gonna buy a game new, like good example is Metal Gear Solid 5. Like, I'm going to play Metal Gear Solid 5 when it dropped. Like, I knew it would be a banger. No question. Death Stranding? Not the same. I just didn't know, you know? Morningstar option 89. Hey Jordan, I'm going to bed now. I recommend playing AC Mirage. It has black box mission and none of that grindy side quest. Good night. Thank you. I will definitely think about it. And so like that's part of the question, right? Like that is part of a thing that a lot of players have to consider is like, if a game comes out, and it's not just that, but also it's other questions of how much replay value am I going to get out of this? Like if I'm spending $60 on a game, and that is one of 2 games I get a year, it's probably not going to be, unless I don't have any time, it's probably not going to be a 5-hour game. Or I guess, yeah, here's another problem. It's $70 now. But it's probably not going to be a 5-hour game with no replay value. You know, think about The Order 1886. Like a game I rented, platinum in a day, returned it. Haven't touched it again since. Like that is a hard game to say, hey, here's your AAA experience, right? But you compare that, it was a $60 game, compare that to The Witcher 3, you know? And there's a lot of differences there. But those are part of the, like, the value proposition is a massive question that comes into effect when you're talking about, okay, why do corporations mandate this, this, and this? And I think that's been a huge problem with Ubisoft games is that, like, technically they offer a lot of bang for their buck, but like, it's just empty shit over time. It's just like, I've like, if I'm not playing authored side missions, what's the point? You know, like I'm just running around doing the same shit over and over and over and over. I was just thinking about 1886 when you said that. Oh. 2K hours in Cities Skylines? God damn. Are you an actual civil engineer?
Domination.
Jonathan, thank you very much for super chatting $5. A rainbow is an optical phenomenon caused by dispersion of light in water droplets in the sky. Water is woke, spread the word. Water's keeping me alive, so spread the word.
Took Charlie. Enemy took B. Alpha lockdown.
Lieutenant, I keep buying indie games that have high replay value. I have so many farming sims. Well, I mean, like, and that is also why roguelikes are a really great value proposition. And well, and again, somebody said Hellblade is the exception. Hellblade was $30 on release. Or was it 20? No, it was 30. I reviewed Hellblade. Didn't I? Pretty sure I did. Hey, that's me! I reviewed this. What did I give Hellblade? Let's see.
Securing B.
God damn, what a good looking game. 9.5 out of 10. Shit, yeah. Yeah, Banana Brain ZF. It was $30.
That was too close.
Like, and again, that's a different value proposition. You can usually be like, okay, well, if I'm gonna get, you know, I might play it twice. I can get 6 or 7 hours out of it. Like, you can, I do, like, kind of by like movie rules. Like, okay, if you're gonna pay, if you pay, let's say baseline, like you pay 10 to 14 bucks for a movie ticket. Ooh, Italian Shakespeare. Sorry, I want to answer this. What has been a real bad AAA or AA game that has come out recently? I mean, like bad controls or bad story. I mean, Suicide Squad is. Here's the thing, Suicide Squad actually controls really well. And I think the story is, like, it's fun. It's the most engaging part of that game, for sure. But like a real piece of shit. Well, I don't even, that Gollum game from last year, I didn't play it, but it was apparently like a war crime, basically. Gotham Knights was, I tried to play Gotham Knights. It just seems really unremarkable. Like, it just seemed really boring. Yeah, I don't.
Your trophy system has been destroyed.
I'm trying to, I guess I kind of just don't.
Losing Alpha.
Like most games that come out, especially in the last couple years, we haven't had any real bad games in a while. Like, I think that Gollum game was one of the last times that people were like, oh shit, you got, like, this is so bad, you gotta see this shit, you know? It was like a, no, Starfield, definitely not. Starfield is unremarkable in ways, but it is not a bad game. Oh, the Kong game. I forgot about the Kong game, yep. Yeah, no, Starfield, I'm not talking about, like, as a personal preference. I'm talking about, like, a game that is literally busted. Like, you have games like Starfield and games like Kong are in a different level of badness. Like they are in a enemy sniper working. They're in a class with, like, Ride to Hell Retribution.
Turn this around.
And there's Ride to Hell Retribution. What else would I say? Escape Dead Island is another one. There were a couple there that were, like, real rough. If anybody ever played Alekine's Gun, I wonder if... I don't think I was still there.
Half time.
No. Yeah, I don't know. Oh, you know what? Redfall might...
Switching sides.
This is Jev, and I've seen a clip of this video, and it's hilarious, but I haven't seen the whole thing. So I want to know, like, how hard he actually goes in here, and it's Jev, so you know it'll be funny.
What's going on, guys? It's Jev. Back here over on some more Call of Duty, but today I got a little bit of a different video. I kind of have to reply to some stuff and just clear some stuff up and also talk a small amount of trash. So recently I did a spectating video, and in that spectating video I ended up just doing a small little, like, rant comment / joke about the whole, like, aim assist and mouse and keyboard thing. I was spectating, I went on a little rant about the mouse and keyboard thing, but the really nice thing is that the game is so good that we're back to this age-old argument instead of actually arguing about, like, all of the other stuff that...
It's actually a good point. You know, you can tell, like, how polished a Call of Duty game is based off of what the argument surrounding Call of Duty is. So this year it's skill-based matchmaking and aim assist are kind of like the big two.
Could be wrong with the game. We're back to this whole mouse and keyboard versus controller thing. I ended up seeing this tweet that actually got a good amount of attention. It has almost 1 million views over on Twitter, nearly 10,000 likes on it, lots of retweets and stuff, lots of engagement. I'll just show you guys it. Hold on. Shout out to Merc Music for actually telling me about the fix that they have. He apparently spent some time with customer service over at NVIDIA trying to figure out what's going on with this shadow play issue that I was complaining about in my last couple videos. The trick here, if you're somebody that uses shadow play and you use multiple monitors, whenever you go and click over onto a different monitor or even tab
Shadow play breaks all the time.
Shadow play freaks out and immediately stops recording every single time you try to tab or even move anything anywhere else other than the game. And even then, it was kind of annoying trying to even get it to start on the game. You can sit there and try to open the overlay for the recording settings and stuff, and it wouldn't even open. Sometimes it would just be frozen there. It was absolutely horrible. Turns out that if you actually turn off both of your monitors and just have it on one monitor, I have a triple monitor setup, so most people, they either have 1 or 2 monitors. Basically, this happens when you have multiple monitors connected. If you have one monitor, you're actually able to tab now.
Jeff, I really appreciate the tech support.
So this is a tweet right here by Obey France. It says, Jeb talking about MNK versus aim assist is hilarious, and he's just laughing about it. Now, it's got a good amount of nearly 1 million views on it. Lots of people listen to this. Now, again, notice, it's only 1 minute and 16 seconds, and basically this was my whole comparison talking about how like aim assist mouse and keyboard players kind of do it to themselves by leaning so far and deep into the whole elitist mentality that they're basically like Pro Bowl players that are complaining about other Pro Bowl players that are using gloves. Now, a lot of people are in agreement with this, but it actually bothers me that more people are willing to engage with this. And I made a video about this entire thing 4 months ago. Got people on here that are like, in my opinion, it's a poor comparison and an argument. Yeah, and also, in my opinion, this is clipped in a poor way. I suggest any of these people down here that are saying shit, I highly suggest that you go and watch this video here. Modern Warfare 3 has a big issue. Multiple people had reacted to this, including other mouse and keyboard players like Marksman, high-level mouse and keyboard player, search and destroy player generally. He reacted to this video 4 months ago, says Jeb's rant on aim assist is perfect. This entire video, I suggest that you go and watch this. Instead of just watching this 1 minute clip, I suggest you go and watch this video. And if you don't have the attention span to watch the 17 minutes, go over here, put the playback speed on 1.5. You can do anything that you want right here with this. You can go and watch this at any speed. I talk about this entire situation from all perspectives here. I talk about the truth of it all. I talk about the lies that are thrown around. And then I also talk about the reality of everything. The problem is that most people are going to engage with this tweet because they know that they can sit there and highly concentrate and pick apart a 1 minute thing. I want to see you pick apart this 17-minute long video. Also, anyone that's sitting there and replying to it and tagging me because he actively didn't tag me in this thing, if you actively are looking to argue with me about this whole thing, I also have to put this out there, something that will actually piss you off instead of something that's just a 1 minute thing that isn't completely contextualized. I suggest that you watch this 17-minute long video, but I also have something that's going to hurt your feelings. I'm a better player than you. I'm gonna just say it straight up. Not only am I a better Call of Duty player than you, I'm also just a better gamer in general than you. So if you watched that video and you got mad about it, also I didn't expand on it because that's not what the video was even about. Go and watch that 17-minute long video and then let me know what you think. If you put it on 2x speed, it's more like 8 minutes. I also have to say this, for all of the people that are like sitting there like, oh dude, this guy is trash anyway. Why is anybody even listening to him? I'm better than you. I'm better than you at COD. Not only am I better than you at COD, I'm better than you at everything. As an entire gamer, if you think about a score that somebody gets, my score on controller is likely going to be higher than yours. Mouse and keyboard players, your mouse and keyboard score is likely going to be higher than mine. But when we go and look at a single player on both inputs, I overall in total have a higher score than you. Not only am I better than you at Call of Duty, I'm better than you at most FPS games. Not only am I better than you at FPS games, I'm better than you at fighting games. I'm better than you at platformers. I'm better than you at 2D fighting games, 3D fighting games, Marvel vs.
He just goes full villain.
Capcom type fighting games. I'm better than you at story games. I'm better than you at strategy games. I'm better than you at MOBAs. In total, I am a far superior gamer than anybody that's talking shit to me in there. I'm better. I know for a fact I'm better. In total, if there was ever a point in time where there was a gun...
I don't know, Jev, but if I could ask him one thing, I would love to know when he was recording this, if he was just looking at Twitter and got pissed off, hit record, and then just went off, or if he thought this was hilarious, so uploaded it. I don't know the answer, but
to everyone's head. If we had to run through a gauntlet of video games, you're dead, I'm coming out the win. I beat you at FPS games, I beat you at RPGs, and I beat you at checkers. I'm better than you. I'd run your pockets on every single thing. I beat the fuck out of you in Elden Ring PvP. In total, as a gamer, I slaughter you. Got people on there like, dude, yeah, I want to see you play 5 games on mouse and keyboard on Rebirth Island. I just want to see something. Okay, I want to see you try to beat Millennia. Okay, I want to see your rank on League. Okay, I want to see your ranking over on Tekken. I want to see your rating over on Street Fighter. I want to see your rating over on Mortal Kombat. I shit on you. Give us an equal amount of time with a brand new game neither of us has played. I guarantee I excel better than you. I am naturally more talented than you. I know that for a fact. I read way too much ego shit on there. I got an ego back. See how easy that is? Watch my fucking video. Okay, shut the fuck up. I was gonna upload Elden Ring today, but then I saw that video was out there, so gave me something to talk about. And again, at the end of the day, I'm happy that Modern Warfare 3 is in such a good position that the only complaint that we have is about the age-old, aim assist argument.
So Jeb pulls out his full-on villain arc there, but like freaking hilarious. It's quite the rant, and I only saw like maybe like a 10-second long clip of that, but absolutely hilarious. Oh, Jeff always knocks it out of the park.
You know I'm like a little famous.
No, she's an insane person. She's a
I can't go to jail. I'm gonna freak out. I'm so sad. My dog.
But I haven't gotten his side of the story.
No, but his side of the story is gonna be I beat him up and I sat on the It's gonna look really bad on me.
Huh?
IRL streamers have become a plague to the internet. From creators we have looked into before, such as Jack Doherty, to many others we have yet to discuss, one thing many of them have in common is their tendency to be a public nuisance at best and platforming straight-up crimes at worst. Today we will be looking at an IRL streamer who has been making headlines for the past week. This streamer is named Elisa Schwartz, otherwise known as Elisa Jordana. She and her at-the-time boyfriend, who is known as Scoro online, had gotten into a pretty nasty dispute during one of Elisa's live streams. This spiraled into something physical and ultimately led to Elisa's arrest.
Can I just say sorry and can I pay something?
By now you most likely have heard of this story at some capacity, and we'll get back to the details on this specific point later on in this video. Today we are diving into not just Elisa and I assume her ex-boyfriend, but also some very interesting situations that Elisa has found herself in over the years. This includes her time before and during her IRL live streaming career. Unfortunately for Elisa, this recent scandal isn't her only shocking situation during her time in the spotlight. Welcome to the timeline of one of the most unhinged IRL streamers I have ever come across. You better buckle up because it's about to be a wild ride. If you look a little bit deeper into Elisa, aside from the recent situation she's been in, there have been quite a few clips of her talking about how famous she is.
I'm a famous person. Everybody knows about me.
Oh my god. You know I'm a little famous. I hope that this does not... Actually, can you look it up if anyone... Oh my god.
Because I prove my value. All these people that are just losers, like Uber drivers, and just people like Todd that live with their mom, these people aren't worth paying. They have never succeeded in anything. So of course they're not going to succeed. You'll be in the dust. I will not even know you then. And I'll be huge and you'll still be nothing. I'll be a huge YouTuber with a million subs. And I guarantee that.
From what I've seen, most people haven't heard about her since this past week, though. But to be fair, she does have a history in the entertainment field. Just not a very well-known one from what I could tell. According to an interview by Voyage LA, Elisa's career in entertainment took off by playing in a band called Cobra Starship. You've probably heard of their one song, Good Girls Go Bad, if you grew up in the early 2000s or even the 2010s. Saying 2010s is weird. According to different sources, Elisa was kicked out of the band. An article written on MTV's website that was taken down but archived stated, at some point, Cobra Starship mastermind Gabe Saporta is really going to have to decide if having a guitar player in his band is worth it. Since this article was a bit hard to find, I'm going to go over quite a bit of it, but I will link the full article in the description below. Getting to the bottom of Starship's split with guitar player Elisa Schwartz, a less than harmonious parting of ways involving stolen iPods, spa sessions, and late-night Britney Spears-fueled dance parties, you start to wonder if perhaps Saporta would be better off having never hired a guitar player in the first place. The guitar is an integral part of Cobra Starship, and we definitely want to always have one in the band, he said. But now that all this stuff has come to light, I've definitely questioned my dedication to the guitar. Let's get everyone up to speed on just what stuff Saporta is referring to. Early Thursday morning, a statement by Saporta and a lengthy response from Schwartz began to make the rounds on the internet. In the statement, Saporta announced that Schwartz was leaving the band to, quote, focus once again on her solo career, calling her amazingly talented and thanking her for her rocking the guitar every night for the band. Of course, Schwartz saw things a little differently, writing that she didn't leave the band on her own volition, but rather she was replaced, and that during her time in Cobra Starship, she was subjected to constant verbal abuse and treated like an outsider. At one point, everyone was taking digs at me and insulting me and just overall disrespecting me. I was very isolated by the band at that point, she wrote. They would all hang out together and then they saw me. They would always say little sarcastic comments or insults and then just walk away. There was nothing I could do right in their eyes. They would all go to sound check and tell me about it when they were already on stage because I couldn't handle hanging out with them because of the constant verbal abuse. And then I get screamed at for missing it when they could have texted me. I was the only person who wasn't allowed to have a friend on the bus, so me and my best friend had to drive behind in a car while all the band members' girlfriends were staying there. Schwartz also contends that she is yet to speak with her former bandmates about being replaced, that Cobra Starship continues to write songs and rehearse on equipment that she paid for, and the whole situation has left her disappointed and deeply saddened. Not surprisingly, Supporter was itching to respond to all of this, detailing in a long and incredibly detailed list of briefs he and the rest of Starship had with the former guitarist, starting with her decision to leak his statement to the net in the first place. We wrote that statement as a way of announcing that she had left the band, and we sent it to her to take a look at and change around whatever she wanted. But rather than doing that, she posted parts of it online and wrote this response that aired out all this dirty laundry. She's forced my hand. If she wants to say she was fired, then I'll have to explain just why we fired her. Supporter explained that his problems with Schwartz started almost from the minute she joined the band because she had began to act in ways people in bands aren't supposed to act. She always expected people to carry her stuff for her. She would disappear the whole day and go to spas. She would miss sound checks all the time. I'm sure she felt insecure. She never toured before, and there's a certain way about it. And she refused to get acclimated to it. Plus, some of the guys in the band have a very specific sense of humor, and she would get offended by it. But I personally never subjected her to any verbal abuse. I deny that wholeheartedly. Not gonna lie, there's parts of this response that don't sound the greatest to me, such as the guys had a sense of humor that she was offended by. Supporter said Schwartz started inviting strangers onto GGH's bus, which led to several awkward situations and some unsanctioned late-night dance parties. The gym class heroes were nice enough to let us share the bus, and it's their tour, it's their bus, so none of us were bringing anyone on the bus. But Elisa would bring people on the bus who were lurkers. Plus, she would turn up Britney Spears and have dance parties each night. After the behavior continued on Cobra Starship's second tour, which resulted in someone absconding with Starship's bassist Alex Cerez's iPod, the band stripped Schwartz of all inviting people on the bus privileges. Despite the guitarist's best efforts to convince the group she would change, including writing a 9-page apology letter according to Supporta, the band decided to part ways with her officially earlier this month. Supporta said that Schwartz's claims that she had never spoken to anyone in the band about her dismissal are bogus, as are her assertions that the band had stolen her equipment. If she wants her guitar back, it's totally at the Crush Management's office right now. He's looking forward to getting the Starship back on the road, with a new guitarist, Victoria Asher, on board for the ride. When contacted by MTV News for a rebuttal, Schwartz declined to comment, but she did write in an email that she has not been paid by the band and they have still not returned her guitar. She also maintained that while she was on tour with Cobra Starship, she was treated like garbage and that she would really like to tell her story, but didn't want to sound too negative. It's a good thing too, because we think the good name of the guitar has already been sullied enough by this sordid split, as if Jan Hammer hadn't caused enough damage to its rep already. There is another article that has been written from the perspective of Elisa, and this one is still accessible. On a website called marieclaire.com, it shares a bit of insight from Elisa's point of view on the situation. One interesting thing to note here is that articles like this are usually written by journalists or a third party. For example, the article we just read was written by a man named James Montgomery, who was not actually in the band. However, the article we're about to get into was actually written by Elisa herself. They told me I wasn't pretty enough to be a rock star. Former Cobra Starship musician Elisa Jordana on the sexism she experienced in the music industry. This was published in 2017. This was posted several years after the back and forth that was archived on MTV's website. When I started writing songs as a kid, I thought I'd be the next Madonna, but I didn't look like Madonna. I didn't sound like Madonna, as many men in my life were fond of reminding me I was never going to be her. But then I get a chance at fame. They said, "You're not beautiful enough," my manager informed me, relaying a memo from a record label representative. It wasn't the first time I had been told I didn't have the right look to be a pop star. Feeling masochistic, I asked him to elaborate. Too old, too fat, and a weird nose, he clarified. Did they like the songs, I asked? They didn't mention the songs, but they pointed out you looked like a mom and not a hot one. After years of trying to make it as a solo artist in a male-dominated music industry, I knew the drill. If they didn't want to bang you, they weren't interested in talking to you. Image was a major factor in building a successful singing career, and I felt tremendous pressure to dress and act very sexy. Growing up, I had always been extremely awkward and shy. Sometimes I'd go a week in school without saying a word. I had a super skinny body, a big nose.
My gosh, you guys, having kids is so much fun.
Adults have a really hard time understanding that children can be full of evil and what that takes to fight it.
Popular ex-family vlogger Ruby Franke and her business partner Jody Hildebrandt were arrested on August 30th after Ruby's son escaped their home seeking help from the neighbors. On February 20th, 2024, Ruby and Jody were each sentenced to serve up to a maximum of 30 years in prison, and many thought that this is where the story would end. However, over the past week, evidence of their case has been released to the public, including a multi-page journal which we will be diving into today. At this point, you most likely know who Ruby Franke, 8 Passengers, and Jody Hildebrandt are. If you've seen any of my previous videos, I've covered them at length, and there have been other good creators who have covered this story at length as well. And it has even made its way over to the mainstream media and news outlets at this point with all of the awful things that have been coming out over the past few months. I will briefly explain that 8 Passengers used to be a family vlogging channel, with Ruby and Kevin Franke being the parents and the one in charge of this account, who would make videos with their 6 children. A few years ago, this channel just disappeared, and suddenly a channel known as Connections was on the rise. And this is more than just a YouTube channel, but also a group and a program that was seemingly run by Jody Hildebrandt. The YouTube channel Connections featured Jody and Ruby giving advice to parents that happened to be very concerning when you would listen to some of the stuff that they would say. Now, I want to let you know now that there will be a lot of discussion about religion in Ruby's journal, which we will get into in a moment, but it's important to let you know up front that if what she wrote in this journal is true, they seem to have both weaponized the fear of God in their children, or at least when it comes to Ruby's children. Throughout Ruby's diary, she admits to treating her children like satanic spawn. I'm not being hyperbolic. Ruby literally considers them to be satanic spawn and justifies treating them the way that she did because of that. This was also mentioned in a phone call she had with her husband, Kevin.
Adults have a really hard time understanding that children can be full of evil and what that takes to fight it. You've seen what it takes to fight evil. It's not the person you're fighting, and it can look like something it's not. When you've been there, you know that. And so I don't know any adults who are going to see the truth.
I've been debating on doing an entirely separate video on the husband, Kevin Franke, because I don't think he received a lot of coverage in this entire situation. There are some things that I have issues with regarding his involvement in this YouTube channel prior to all of the stuff that Ruby and Jody had gotten arrested for. It's important to note that Kevin has not been arrested or charged with anything and was not involved with Ruby and Jody's treatment of the children during this time. From what Kevin explained, he was essentially excommunicated from Ruby and Jody's program and also their lives and his children's lives for about a year. Prior to that, however, he was involved with the questionable parenting decisions during the era of the 8 Passengers channel. One of the things that I will say is pretty interesting to me is the fact that the 2 children who were living with Ruby and were mentioned in Ruby's diary, whose names are redacted to E and R, by the way, were also the same 2 children who were very mistreated by both Ruby and Kevin when they were still living together as a family. That's not to make any accusations that Kevin has actually used them the way that Ruby has by any means, but there is one clip a while back when Ruby and Kevin were still together and still parenting together that they both decided that they were going to take Christmas away from them and still give their other children presents because these 2 children were not being humble enough. Additionally, back during the days of 8 Passengers, whenever Ruby got backlash for her parenting methods, Kevin would be standing by her side. Even during the clip of police questioning Kevin when Ruby first got arrested, they asked him how they parented their children together when he still lived with them, and he refused to answer. And when all of this first started, Kevin was part of this Connections group, and it really makes me wonder what things would be like if he wasn't pushed away when he was. The thing is with this Connections program is that they use very specific wording: living in truth, being humble, distortion. I've mentioned in previous videos that these words are repeated over and over again in their podcasts. In one of the Law and Crime Network video clips, when Kevin is questioned by police, even he is seen using the same wording. In the beginning of this investigation, it seemed like he was completely brainwashed, but then as time went on, it seemed like he snapped out of it, for a lack of a better term. I digress. Going back to 8 Passengers for a second, Ruby and Kevin both received a lot of criticism for their parenting style, especially when it came to Ruby refusing to feed her children, which is important for later. As we've mentioned many times in previous videos, there was one instance where her very young child forgot to pack herself a lunch and her Her teacher texted Ruby and asked her if she could bring in a lunch for her child, and Ruby said no. Ruby said that her daughter packed herself a lunch but forgot it, and that means that the natural outcome would be that her daughter would have to be hungry. And she also mentioned how she hoped that nobody would give in and feed her daughter because she was trying to make this a teachable moment, even though her daughter was like 6. A very similar thing happened with her son. He forgot to bring his lunch, so he called Ruby and asked her if she could bring him his lunch, and she said no. The only difference is that this time, while she's recording herself talking to her son on the phone, she says that hopefully somebody would be willing to share their lunch with him until he gets home, where she will have a yummy snack for him.
These are the same 2 children that are unfortunately going to be mentioned throughout Ruby's journal, and for the entirety of this video they will be referred to as E and R. E being Ruby's daughter and R being Ruby's son. On top of that, there have been other things Ruby and Kevin have been criticized for. One of the other things was taking one of their children's beds away, and that's somewhat relevant later on in this video as well when we get into Ruby's journal.
So going back to a few months ago, Jody and Ruby had been arrested after one of Ruby's children had escaped their home and gone to a neighbor's house for help, asking to be taken to the police station. And at that point, what we knew about the situation was horrific enough, especially with the details provided by the neighbor who found the child. I am so sorry, I just realized that I was recording with my camera microphone instead of this microphone for the first 5 minutes of that. I'm going to try my best to make that sound better. Anyway, Jody and Ruby had gotten arrested, and after their hearing had finished up, and they pled to multiple counts of aggravated child abuse. And each of them can serve up to 30 years in prison. It's important to say up to, though, because each count has its own limits. It's very possible that they could get out sooner than that. Now, I did make a video covering the sentencing, and after that, I thought that was pretty much going to be it. I thought this is where it is. We're not going to hear much more about it. I was very wrong. It didn't occur to me that they would be releasing more of the evidence after the situation. I mean, now thinking back on it, it makes sense. I want to warn you that what we are going to be going over today, which is mostly Ruby's journal, I am reading pretty much every page that isn't redacted, with the exception of redacting a few extra things myself for the sake of privacy and dignity for the children involved. I think it's really important to document this, to let you know her thought process through this, which is absolutely unhinged, by the way. Along with her journal, much other evidence has been released. I'm not going to go over all of that today. I don't know if I ever really will, because a lot of it I find completely disturbing. It's so much worse than I think anybody could have imagined. Even when this all came out, I don't think people were imagining it to be this bad. She forced her children to sleep outside, only allowing them to come in to use the bathroom and shower. Although at points it seemed like she would let the children shower outside in the rain. She made one of her children stand outside in the desert heat to try and make him repent. She fully believes that both her children are possessed by Satan.
This stuff has been after me for years.
And this is why she's treating them like this. She also did not seem concerned whatsoever that her children were hospitalized for 3 days and thought that it wasn't necessary.
They're going to be in the hospital for 3 days.
So weird. It's just not necessary. They're trying to exaggerate this.
She made them exercise on this trampoline for hours and hours. There's at one point she made them jump on the trampoline outside in the hailstorm and told them that God was also punishing them and that it was some sort of divine miracle that he was helping her punish them. We'll get into all of that later. Some of the worst things are the way that her children tried to run away, the way that I interpret her journal. I believe that one tried to literally escape by continuously trying to jump into a cactus. Her other child basically was trying to go to jail to escape. It's really, really up. And I'm letting you know a lot of this up front so that way you're prepared when we go into details of this journal, because it's really a lot to digest. I'm not going to go into details about the footage regarding the police finding the children, other than what is absolutely necessary to provide context for the journal entries. All I'll say is that Law and Crime Network on YouTube, I'll link their channel in the description below because they have several videos regarding Ruby and Jody and Kevin as well. They provide a lot of information and a lot of video footage and a lot of evidence regarding all of this. There's another creator on YouTube known as Marky who has been covering the 8-passenger situation way more than I have, and he goes into a lot of detail in a very digestible way that doesn't get too upsetting. If you want to know more about the details, I highly recommend checking out his channel as well. I'll leave that linked in the description below. Also, the majority of this video from here on out is just going to be about Ruby's journal. I'm going to be reading as much of the journal that I can that has been released to the public after being a portion of this evidence involved in this entire situation. I want to let you know again that a lot of what is written here is upsetting, and I also want to let you know that while reading this, my commentary on it is very minimal compared to how I normally respond to things. I do have a few opinions here and there, but if I were to give you my thoughts on every single thing written in this book, we would be here for hours. With that being said, let's dive into this journal. This is going to be a really long read, so I suggest that you either keep yourself busy or you sit down. One last thing, her handwriting is not the worst by any means. However, some things she has written down were a little bit hard to read, so I've decided to put everything she's written in this diary into the form of text, and I tried my best to make it word for word. However, I may have made a few mistakes due to not fully understanding some of the words she has written in her handwriting. So the first thing written in her diary is a timeline. We're going to start at 6:30:23, which states R refuses to do wall sits. He says he is done. 7:1:23. R is to stay outside, sleep outside, only come in to use the bathroom and shower. Part of it was also redacted. I couldn't read everything. 7:14:23. E refuses to work, screams, has hair shaved off. 7:15:23. R runs away around 1:15 a.m. Ruby finds him at 3:14 a.m. Jody, E, J drive to Arizona to find a property, land. Later on, you're going to realize why 7:15:23's note there is extremely infuriating and disturbing. Now getting on to the entries. July 9th, 2023, Sunday. R turns 12 tomorrow. I never envisioned him being 12. Satanic chorus leads one to becoming destructive, even in the most affluential homes. July 10th, 2023, Monday. It's R's birthday. He doesn't even know what month it is. They are both furious. Their selfish, sinful lifestyle is being intervened upon. I told R he imitates a snake. He slithers and sneaks around, waiting for opportunities when no one is watching, and then he scurries. If he wants to imitate the savior, he needs to be 100% obedient with exactness. No wavering, no hiding. R lies. I mean, all the time. He's a compulsive liar. I would have never suspected. This entire experience is a shock to my system. I never would have expected the cold, dead heart R has if I didn't know where to look. He has always been able to get what he wants, and now he can't. He is furious. I told him if he, illegible word, everything, he would automatically begin repenting. I told R that he needs God. I invited him to fast and pray. By the way, when she says invite, it pretty much means she forced. R is in and out of possession. He is workable and calm for a bit, and then angry and defiant the next. The only consistent thing about R is that he lies. E is better behaved with Jody. She likes to think that she can still manipulate me. I gave her a pixie haircut. All long hair gone. No more distracting with her hair. R told me he'd rather have a glass of water than me as his mother. 7/11/23, Tuesday. Big day for evil. E manipulates me. She won't scream when Jody is around, but with me, she wails. All night, E screamed, cried, and would hit her head on the tile floor. Today, Jody confronted her. E admits to putting on a show for her mother. E says she wants to be pitiful. R was told to stand in the sun with his sun hat. He is defiant. No. I tell him a couple more times. R, or should I say his demon, stays in the shade. I push R into the sun. R comes back. I come back with a cactus poker. When I poke his back to get in the sun, he doesn't even flinch. I poke him on the neck. He is in a trance and doesn't appear to feel anything. Jody taps him on the cheeks to wake him up. It kind of sounds like he's fucking dissociating. The devil doesn't like it when you're subject to the truth. Do you know I love you? Yes, ma'am. Do you know that G. Joe loves you? Yes, ma'am. I'm pretty sure G. Joe represents Jody. Do you know that the Savior loves you? Yes, ma'am. R wants out of his outcomes. After our talk, R stays in the shade. I take my old mop of water and go to R. I show R the water. Then I pour this water on R. It's hot outside. It feels good, doesn't it? Yes. From this point forward, I'm saying G-Joe as Jody. An hour later, Jody takes R on a little walk to the pool. She talks about how R has love twisted. If R likes something that someone does, he calls it love. If he doesn't, he thinks it's not loving. Probably because he barely receives any act of love or kindness in your presence, Ruby. I'm sorry, I try not to name call too much on here, but this lady is evil in my opinion. Jody then pushed R into the pool. R swam to the side. Jody pulled him out. Feel good? Refreshing? Yes, ma'am. I went out a couple of hours later. Asked if he wanted the pool again. Yes, ma'am. Will you let me push you in? R laughed. Then he tried not to act too excited. R cooled off. Went back to his spot. I put my hands on his face. R, have you ever heard somebody talk underwater? Yes, ma'am. I know R is in there somewhere. I know deep down under all this anger you can hear me. It may sound like I am underwater with you, but hear me. I love you. R got teary. Then I put my hand tightly over his nose and mouth. I am coming to you in this water. Putting my hands over your nose and mouth, the devil lies and says I am hurting you, abusing you. But R, what am I really doing? Hurting and abusing him, what you're currently imprisoned for. You're putting oxygen on me to help me breathe. Yes, that's right. R looked like he wanted to beat me up this morning. Then he was intrigued and interested. And then 2 hours later, he drinks water from the hose. Steals water. You did not allow this kid to drink water and you're making your children fast? And he goes to drink water from the hose because he's probably dehydrated standing in the sun all day? And you call that stealing water? R is compulsive. He feels no remorse for his choices. He shuts down, says he wants to go to jail. Imagine being treated so badly that you as a child would want to go to jail to escape the situation you live in. R says he worships the devil, has no interest in changing. I want the outcome of being changed, but I don't want to do the work that it requires. R doesn't actually know what jail means. He has no comprehension of what throwing your life away means. He just wants the immediate gratification of sitting in an air-conditioned car ride to juvie. He wants stimulus. R is so back and forth. R stole water. He was angry and looked like he wanted to fist up. I put my hands on his shoulders and told him I love him. I told him he has no idea what he is doing, but I do. I can help him. I told him, give your demon friend a message for me. I will not rest. I will not stop. I will not leave. I will fight him until the day you die. I'm gonna reread that last sentence. I will fight him until the day you die. Why would a mother say until you die instead of until I die? Why isn't the expectation of her children outliving her anywhere in her brain? I have the power of God and he must obey. I beat Satan. I win. Then I looked into R's eyes and with power and authority commanded, get out now. Go. R immediately smiled, cried, slumped, softened. He's gone. He left. I took E and R on a car ride to the gas station. I told E that she was never going home. I showed her pictures on the swing under the big tree. She saw a girl who was hiding and enjoyed tricks. I told her I saw a daughter of God with divine work. E manipulated during the car drive. R appeared to soften. I stopped the car and we got out to view the sunset. I told E that she needs to stop her fantasy. She is not innocent. She can become innocent through repentance. Don't waste more time. R and E have been counting days. R did know that yesterday was his birthday. E told me she figures they have been here for 8 weeks. I asked E if she felt like she had made progress over 8 weeks. Yes! I told her she was delusional. She had made no progress. She continues to lie and manipulate. Last night, her screaming were evidence of no change. It's evidence of a child in severe mental and physical distress, being extremely and severely neglected and emaciated. 7/22/23, Wednesday. I took the kids on an hour car ride. We stopped at the lake. I shared my love for them. We watched a baby cow get loose and walk into the road in front of us. kids. I made the analogy of the not-so-wise calf to them. I was keeping them safe when they want to run into the road. We drove up to a store. I bought a volcano pie. I told the kids the pie was for Jody for her home, care, and time. R appeared enraged. I would too if my mother was starving me while buying somebody else a f***ing pie. E was manipulative. This is the day E anticipates breaking her 2-day fast. When we get home to Jody, I let R know she has hardened her heart and will do one more day of fasting to invite her to humble. E flips out and begins ranting. She refuses to get up. She lies on the floor all day speaking dishonest chants. Because Jody is on the phone with clients, I don't go in and match her level of aggression. Is this to imply she has during times Jody was not on the phone? All day, E makes rhymes about, my mom is starving me and calls it fasting. My mom won't lift 2 fingers to bring me food because all she does is lie on the bed and eat brownies. My mom says she is the most loving mom in the world, blah, blah, blah. If I can't ever go home, then what's the point of being obedient? I'm going to run away. Jody helped me intervene after work. Allowing lies to be spewed gives the devil a platform. Articulating lies reinforces possession. The longer the lies are allowed to be spread, the longer the intervention and physical intervention needs to be. I cut off more of E's hair. We doused her with water in the dog wash. Did she just admit to supporting her child? I need more context, I think, to fully come to that conclusion, but reading that kind of makes it sound like that's what she did. Jody told E that she has no idea what is waiting for her. 7/13/23. I may have forgotten to write this. On the 11th, I took R's face in my hands and spoke to him. I told him to give the demon a message for me. I will not give up. I will not leave. I am going nowhere. Get out. She has said that before, by the way. R released the demon and has been very workable ever since. This morning, the 13th, R broke his fast with brown rice, lentils, black beans, and chicken and water. I told R to think of the hornet as Satan. Would you become pals with Satan? Would you sell your soul or chicken to a hornet? He will sting you in the end. R trapped the bee with his sun hat. E broke her fast with cheesy potatoes, steak, water, oatmeal, and water. She said water twice. R is full of piss and vinegar. She is mad. As a hornet, she doesn't call the shots. There's been a couple times throughout this so far where I think she's gotten E and R mixed up, or maybe the people who are redacting it got it mixed up, because I'm pretty sure E is the daughter and R is the son. Anyway, it's been about 90 minutes since R ate. I warned him that the food would either energize him to truth or define. He is defiant again. He is telling me no. I'm redacting part of this information, but she writes something that there is a specific issue with his health where she cannot continue to make him fast, and it's disgusting. R admits to stealing water 3 times yesterday. R lies and feels no remorse. E is cheating. These selfish children whose only desire is to take, lie, and attack have no understanding of God's love for them. They don't know Jody is selling her home, this priceless Snow Canyon gem, so she can purchase a land where these two can work. Excuse me, what the f***? Jody is looking for property with, I don't know if this says Sovos or is supposed to be saguaro cactus. I don't know. Something about cactuses. Jody is looking for property and is feeling more imminent with the need to get those kids to open land. She is willing to consider less than ideal property for them. How is it any less ideal than what you have already put them through in the conditions they have been living in for months at this point? This is a spiritual matter. I can't in good faith leave you with these two gremlins. I won't do that. These are God's children. Again, Sovos, I don't know, don't matter when the souls are on the line. 1 hour later, we move quickly. Jody and Jay are going to look at a property in Arizona. Ruby has some cash in the bank. If the property is right, we can move on financing immediately. We decided that the escalation of the kids is not manageable here. Now R is sitting, angry, defiant. E is lying on the floor. We will bring them in. R, I will clean up in the desert as he redacted. He will then stand and sit on the patio shaded. Now I'll see him from the kitchen. You'll see him while you're making food for yourself and probably Jody watching your kid roasting in the fucking heat. E, I will bring into the cool house and she can sit in the pantry. They will think that they won. They will think they got what they wanted. They will relax. Then pop. We will drop them like potatoes out in the desert. Their new home. You're going to get exactly what you asked for. Oppositional force is required for growth, development, significant maturity. ENR have never experienced oppositional force. They are very weak-minded. Pattern. Sending evil away in a long-time possessed person is not a one-and-done deal usually. These wicked spirits in ENR have been pals long before this life. How ENR got to come and get a body can only be explained in me advocating to be their mother. This is not a conceited statement. God knows I would take my responsibility to mother seriously. Jody attempted to help. Those two souls are very weak of mind. They are fools, truly. E said she would choose the devil over God. What arrogant spew. God is patient to not split her with a bolt of lightning. She's wishing the ultimate demise on her children. You do not tempt God, who controls your very breath. The disdain and hate they have for God is beyond my ability to describe. My spirit is offended. I shudder to think I would not have seen this had I not pushed on them. Holding principles. Boundaries shows you how much possession a soul has. The more boundaries, the more the soul will reveal itself. Trial will reveal a soul because of the limits built into a tribulation. Back to sending evil away. Articulating truth drives evil away. This is a powerful intervention for the possessed. Even if you start agreeing to something truthful, you are a daughter of God. True? Yes, ma'am. Principle. Following up on advocating a desire for evil to leave with a demonstration of obedience is powerful. Demonstrating a willingness to follow truth is a pattern. This is just like their principles of truth bullshit that they kept posting on their Connections podcasts. The Savior used his interactions. Go sell all you have and follow me. Go and sin no more. Go wash 7 times. Go and tell no more. Go and tell the cities. Go and preach my gospel. Go feed my sheep. If you can engage a weak-minded soul in a physical activity of obedience, you can begin to break the bond Satan made with the weak. Physically stop the acting out behaviors and begin physically doing the good. Farm work, lifting boxes, extorting energy, exercises, jump rope, milking cows, weeding a garden, digging trenches. Satan cannot be where there is good. Oh, I hate to tell you, Ruby, but there were a lot of not good things going on in your house. Begin doing, sweating for good, heavy physical intensity, capture your attention. The problem for ENR is that hard labor for all of the sake of lifting does not have the meaning of do good. We need property where a ranch can be built, good can be done, outcomes of prosperous choices can be seen, experienced, and felt. And the kids need a good kick from a horse and a cactus to run into. They need natural outcomes. Ugh, that just reminds me of her. The natural outcome is she's gonna have to be hungry.
So the natural outcome is she's just going to need to be hungry.
This is one of the 2 children that happened to. The other child she refused to give food to is one of the children in this situation. The boy R.
To tell you this, honey, but unless you find a friend who's willing to share some of their food with you, I don't think you're going to be able to eat. But if you're not responsible for your lunch and your lunch money, that's the natural consequence. And I'm really sorry you're learning this the hard way.
I asked R what he was thinking about since he was sitting in the shade and he had what he wanted. R answered, what I want. Me, what do you want? R, more different foods and a soft bed. Me, why don't you ask Satan? Do you think Satan will give you these? R, no. Me, why not? R, because he doesn't have the power. He also probably doesn't have a credit card either. But Ruby probably does, and this isn't the first time she refused one of her children to sleep in a bed. Me, why would you serve a God who has no power to give you desires? Dumb. R, silent. Blank had another episode with demons. She gives herself to them. She agreed to stop being deceptive with her facial expressions and crying and whining. Whining is the devil's voice. Whining is always the demon. Blank's hurt facial expressions blame me for her misery. It is E at the center of her misery. Her face is deceptive. After E did stairs, she sat on the park bench looking at the mountain views. She was told to sit and be still and eat her dinner. Carrots, hummus, grilled cheese, and water. E, in a power play, brought her empty plate to the door and then removed her sun hat. 7/14/23, Friday. E woke up. I reminded her that if she whined, cried, or squinted her eyes at me, or soured her face, I would be buzzing her hair. If she is going to act sick, she can look sick. She agreed with a smile. I told her because she didn't listen the night before, she would do 2 sets of boxes and stairs with a 5-minute break. She did the first set easing and agreeably. After 5 minutes of rest, she began whimpering. boring. When she got to the bottom stair, she slipped and dropped the box. I put her in the dog wash and shaved her head, then back to boxes. I told E, yes ma'am, with tears. They're treating this poor kid like she's fucking Cersei from Game of Thrones. Me, it's heavier than boxes, right? E, yes ma'am, me. E, I can help you find relief. You have told so many lies about me that you refuse to be obedient. Why do you keep being buddies with Satan? E, I don't want to work. Me, don't you see it's because you follow Satan that you keep doing boxes? If you were humble, you would be inside making pancakes with Blank and me. E agreed to sit on the park bench and think about her choices. I made it very clear if she were to move, get up, fidget, talk, take her hat off, she would go back to work. Blank agreed eagerly. She promised to be obedient. After an hour on the bench, he began moving and looking around. I pulled her into the house and gave her more boxes. Now to R. Me, you like sleeping on the hard ground? I slept in a soft bed. R. I slept really well. Me, you are mean. Do you enjoy being mean? R. Yes, ma'am. Me, do you expect me to feed you? R. Yes. Me, I got big over him. I will feed R. I will not feed a demon. So I will check on you in a bit. If you want food, then be prepared to tell the truth about your behaviors. Tell the truth of who I am. An hour later. Me, are you ready? R. No, ma'am. Me, so would you rather have no food and worship the devils? R. Yes, ma'am. Me, okay. E does first set of books decently. 10-minute break. E, upset to do boxes. Get them done. Sits on park bench for 1 minute, then picks Jody's blossom off the plant. Defiant. More boxes. She refuses. Goes to sleep on the basement floor. R, stand up. Stop picking your nose. The kids both pick their noses until they bleed. Distraction. Me, are you happy? R, no. Me, following Satan doesn't make you happy? Shocker. So Satan can't feed you? Who is supposed to feed you? R, God. Me. And R, Christ. Me, this is a game you play. Who brings you food? R, you. Me, do you want me to leave the demons? R, I don't want to be humble. Basically, what I'm gathering from this so far is that this kid at 12 years old is already understanding that what is going on here isn't right, and this language of truth, distortion, being humble, these key words that are constantly repeated are words that this child is tired of hearing. I told Blank I wanted to give him dinner with chicken. He needs to acknowledge his behaviors. He tells me he is missing his opportunity to repent. This is not acknowledging his behaviors. I will tell R he is treating me and Jody the way that he believes he really deserves to be treated. There are then several redacted words. I bring him dinner of brown rice, beans, lentils, and water. He takes the bowl and begins eating. I say, no thank you? Are you going to acknowledge the woman you've been abusing just brought you dinner? Oh my God. R, well, I would say thank you, but I wouldn't really mean it. With that, I reached down and grabbed his dinner and water and said, wow, wow. R tried going back on what he said with some explanation, and I stopped him. I will not talk with a demon. Your soul is damned, and I will not hear your damnable words. Straight to bed. E has started walking stairs without a box. She is now slipping and falling on purpose. When E was outside today and it was hot, she acted like she was dying. So pitiful. I told her, E, the heat in hell is much hotter and God is going to burn the wicked. So either get used to it or start changing. E, I don't really believe that's actually going to happen. It sounds like she's not buying into this brainwashing either. And listen, it's one thing to have religion or anything like that, but this is blatantly manipulating kids into doing really disgusting things that no parent should be making their kids do. This is and they are trying to brainwash them and manipulate them into thinking that this is normal, and it's not, and it didn't work. These kids clearly know what's going on is not okay. Kids are all in bed. E ate mashed potatoes and turkey and milk. Jody and Jay are looking into RV trailers. These kids have no idea the sacrifices being made for them.